Good afternoon. Go ahead and call this 7th City Council meeting to order. Tonight we have a full schedule. First off, we're going to, after the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to have the public hearing for the Southern of St. James. And during the mayor's report, we're going to have the auditors to come up to give an overview of the audit. And during the Attorney General report, the council will go into executive session to discuss a legal matter. At this time, Councilwoman Jackson, if you'd be so kind to give us an invitation.
If you bow your heads, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to come before your holy and precious throne, Lord God, to seek your face and not your hand. Lord God, to ask for your wisdom and insight in every situation, for your guidance, to be the men and women of God that you have purposed for this city at this time. Lord God, we ask that you be with us and lead us and guide us. Lord God, we just ask that your Holy Spirit will saturate the atmosphere. Let nothing that is not of your will be productive or conducive tonight, Lord God, but let only those things that you have proclaimed for this evening to come to pass. It is in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
President Bowie.
Present.
Councilman Boling.
Present.
Councilwoman Youngblood. Here. Councilwoman Jackson.
Present.
Councilwoman Benjamin.
Here.
Councilman Randolph. Present. Councilman LaShore. Here. Councilwoman Thomas.
Present.
Councilman Johnson.
As stated before, we do have a quorum that we can conduct the city business. At this time, we're going to have a public hearing on the subject of the St. James Hotel. At this time, if anyone would like to come before the council in favor of selling the St. James or in opposition of selling the St. James Hotel, if you come forward, if you would please give us your name for the matter of the record. At this time, anyone would like to come forward in favor or in opposition of selling the St. James Hotel?
President, before we start, I want for the record to reflect that Councilman Johnson is not here due to death in his family.
My name is Sylvia Smith. I am not in favor of the deal as it was published in the paper. It says it's going to sell to St. James for $400,000, but really it's not, because after they pay the $100,000, then they get zero interest for a year, and if they spend $300,000 on their own property, the rest of the $400,000 will never have to be paid, just the first $100,000. They immediately get a grant transferred from the cities, so for $125,000, so they're to the good $25,000 already, plus $1 million has been reserved for Alabama tax credits. That would have cost somebody $10,000 to apply for. I don't know who's going to end up paying for that. So I don't see how this is a good deal for the city, because you've already paid appraisal fees, you've already paid attorneys, and I don't know how much the total of that has run to so far. I don't know if a real estate agent is getting a fee. I know at one time there was a contract for someone to get $70,000. So I don't see how this is a good deal for the city. Also, I kind of take it personally because the Phoenix parking lot, the Phoenix Park, which they proposed to make the parking lot, for $100 a month for 99 years, was purchased with $50,000 given by the Selma Dallas County Historic Preservation Society. And I'm sure they didn't give it with the idea it would become a parking lot. It was supposed to be used to attract a business to Water Avenue. This was when that building was still standing before it had collapsed. And $16,900 of it was used to purchase the building. After that, we got no accounting of how the rest of the $50,000 was used, possibly to help clean up the collapsed mess. So, you know, that was a lot of riverfront market days, sitting out there in the cold mornings and the hot afternoons to accumulate $50,000, and to think that now it will just be a parking lot is sort of really very disappointing. Not only that, but the same ownership that proposes to buy this hotel and lease that for a parking lot has a hotel in Birmingham, and they charge, according to their website, $27.50 per parking with a valet park, or $10 for self-park. Now with 42 rooms, they're gonna be coming up pretty good if they charge that here. I don't know, it hasn't been discussed or it wasn't disclosed whether they're gonna have free parking or charge for parking, but you know, they would make that back in one day what they paid for a whole year. Why isn't the city gonna get part of this? How is the city gonna come out? How are the citizens gonna come out? The citizens have really utilized this green space. There's been a lot of events that have brought people downtown to Water Avenue. And that's what we've been trying to do. That's why the money was raised and donated, was to try to revitalize Water Avenue. There are parking spaces on the river behind those buildings. It's not necessary to take the park. And I think y'all should remember the citizens who are the taxpayers who paid for this, the people who donated money, and who are the voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I respond to that?
Anyone that's coming up, make sure that y'all use the mic. We're on the air live, so people need to hear everyone. And after we have everyone coming up to speak for or against the resolutions and ordinance that's in place as it relates to the St. James Hotel and the Phoenix Park, and then we're going to let Attorney Gamble come up and do the closing as it relates to it. But we want to hear all the comments before we bring Mr. Gamble up.
Anyone else? Anyone else at this time? All right. Councilwoman Benjamin.
I just want to say thank you to Ms. Smith, Ms. Sylvia Smith. You made some very, very valid points, and you brought the facts with you as usual. Thank you for that. You got a little bit of green space in the matter of Phoenix Parks. I'm not sure how many cars you can park in the Phoenix parking lot, soon to be parking lot. I'm not sure how many cars you can fit in the Phoenix Park. And you're right, a lot of, all of that green space has been used to bring downtown events, and sometimes folks don't like that. And they want to take away things one by one by one. You watch it disappear before your eyes, and people sit up and do nothing about it until Water Avenue looks like you don't know what. So I want to thank you for all that you all have poured into the St. James Hotel. You and many, many other volunteers have poured into the St. James Hotel, and the group that saw a building collapsing. You all went, you didn't just complain about it, you all went and you did something about it. And you made a beautiful, beautiful green space. So I want to say thank you, and I wanted to validate your points.
There you go. Anyone else? Okay, turn it down.
So, are we on?
You on?
Okay, well, I understand the lady's concerns, and the bottom line is you either want to give this guy a chance to make a showplace out of this hotel, or it sits there and falls down and costs the city thousands and thousands of dollars every month, including a $19,000 insurance premium. Mr. Lewis has spent many thousands of dollars working on this. He's hired architects, he's hired engineers, he's done environmental reports. Now he's been told that Hilton is going to require him to have what's called an Alta XCAM, a title insurance type survey. The survey is not quite through. That means it's not just a boundary survey. He has to go in and measure every detail of the building and every easement and plat it out, and he's probably going to spend $10,000 just on that. And what he's gonna have to do is sign his name to a note for over $2 million to guarantee a loan, which is the only way to get this done. And there was no way to get a loan very cheaply. The loan is going to be expensive. He's got to make sure that works, that he makes money and was able to do it, or he's going to be taking a big financial hit. I know it sounds like we, quote, giving the property away. The previous council voted to give it away for $100,000 anyway. The $300,000 came in as an extra because, one reason being because they found mold that's going to cost close to that to repair that was not known about before. So, and with respect to the Phoenix Park, the Hilton requires the parking. We looked at other sites. There was not another site that would fit. And Ms. Patty Sexton called me this afternoon to tell me that she was involved with this from the first, and that there was a lot of discussion when that property was acquired. It was acquired in 3 different transactions. One was a gift. There were two sales, and there was a lot of discussion about, well, we might plant some trees, we might do this and that. According to her, that everybody decided that no, we need to save that parking, that place as parking for the hotel because that hotel is going to need it. And that therefore they just planted grass so that it wouldn't be construction on it again. So, and that according to her, they made the sides of the buildings stronger so that it could accommodate the parking of cars. And of course, there's a very good alley behind the building on the corner that to come in to make for convenient parking. But whether that's true or not, if this project's going to go, and Hilton's going to be behind it, and it's the only way for it to go, unless they're going to be behind it, because the lender's not going to lend the money unless they are, then not to mention that it's such an advantage to have the brand of Hilton to make reservations and to have this be a boutique hotel. It's big for some. So the advantages to the economy, the city, far outweigh what the purchase price is in this particular situation, as I see it. But here tonight, the council has already passed the resolution to approve this. This is the second meeting because the public is invited to come and make comments if they want. And so it's before the council again after the public notice. Also, because of this title survey that's not going to be ready, we're going to have to ask for another 60-day extension. He's bound and determined to get this done before the end of the year to be safe, another 60-day extension. And we ask for a resolution to approve that as well as adopting the previous resolution already adopted at the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Gamble, I want to thank you for coming and clearing that up about the Phoenix Park and about that facility, that area. It was my understanding as well, from even when the hotel was being first reconstructed, that renovated, that they were going to have to plan for parking later on, and that they were looking at that property for a parking facility as well. And when the wall came down, we needed to do something else so it didn't look like a veritable war zone on Water Avenue, so we made a park. And it has been great. It's been wonderful. We have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know I, for one, will hate to give it up. But I think it's pretty ludicrous for us to expect to, first of all, after all we've been through, trying to maintain the hotel. And I was staunchly opposed to closing the hotel down. I was so afraid it would be vandalized. I love that hotel. I love it. Spent the night in it the first night it was open. stayed a lot and entertained people from out of town, a lot of the St. James Hotel. And love it, as most of the people on the council do. And I think the best that we can hope for is to have a vibrant, thriving, lovely facility like that sounds so industrial, beautiful hotel like the St. James. That will be the anchor of Selma, the historic district, the entertainment district. To think, and I'm sure I can certainly understand Ms. Smith's concern. She works diligently and hard, as does a lot of people with the Historic Society, and people who work very hard to raise money and to see that things are preserved. But I think that's the purpose, is to make sure that things are preserved, and Selma is the beautiful attraction it's supposed to be to have tourists. And as it is now, we have buildings that if we can't have them here and be vibrant and have people come and stay in them, then they're going to wind up falling in the river. So this is an opportunity. If we can have a Hilton Curio boutique hotel, shoot, we need to do everything they can. We need to pave the street and, well, spray paint it gold. We can't gild it and gold, but we could, if we need be. So I think this is a great opportunity, best we can hope for.
Okay. Councilwoman Bennett.
My hand wasn't up. Would you like me to speak though?
Councilwoman Thomas, is that time up? Any comments?
No.
Well, yeah, thank you, Susan. We gave money to, I know everybody did, and I know you all have been through more than one efforts at this hotel that have not gone through, and now this looks like maybe the time for it to be real will happen. And so what I need to do is to give the resolve to extend the closing date for 60 days. I don't think it's going to take that long, but we're going to have to need that. The survey won't be here till the end of the month. And I might mention in passing that we're beginning to incur some expense in this. We had to order updated abstracts. And, you know, the $5,000 retainer that you all have approved several councils ago, we paid. I know you don't have the money, we understand that. But we can maybe defer our fees somewhat, but we can't handle our out-of-pocket expenses without being paid for it. So I just want to point that out in passing. We need to approve the resolution that is ordinance. The ordinance and
Did you tell them about the extension?
well, that need to approve that. Then we need to approve.
Yeah, we have two ordinances that and we'll get to that in a few minutes. The two ordinances, and then we have the resolution. We already approved the resolution for the public hearing, but the resolution for the extension. Did you talk to them about the extension?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a resolution for this?
Yeah, we have the resolution.
Yeah.
And City Council, it's being requested, I think 60 days.
Yeah.
It's for a 60-day extension.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you for coming this evening. I just have a couple of questions. The first question is, we talked about, when we had our meeting, small meeting, we talked about other parking lots or the other spaces for the parking lot. Is there absolutely no way that any of them can work? That's my first question. And the second question is, if it's absolutely no way that they'll work and they would pull out if they do not have the Phoenix Park, is there any way that we could do more than $100 for 99 years? Could we look at maybe the first couple of years and contract for that amount and then renegotiate? So those are my two questions.
Well, it's really just a part of giving them the hotel, just to put the parking lot with it. Now, I think we went over a little bit last time. Question. We did look for other spots. The city has a parking lot that is there on Broad Street all the way through to Washington Street. It's well located. We went and looked at the title of that. There's an easement right down the middle of it that services the On-Time Fashions and those stores. So it cuts it right in two. There was not enough room for 42 cars. We looked at the little grassy area behind the interpretive center, and it was not big enough. Plus, it has a huge air conditioning unit that need to be serviced. You couldn't block it off. So, and this is the spot that Hilton looked at, and we would have to go, but the others were not suitable. And I mean, again, sure, it'd be nice to, but bear in mind now, what he didn't get that was asked for initially was a waiver of sales and lodging taxes, which a lot of people ask for when they do these developments. So we're hoping to get money on the other end once he gets going.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jackson. Any other questions? Councilwoman Thomas.
I have a question to ask about resolution. You said extended 60 more days. Will this 60 days be to allow him to more time, or will we have to take on any more expense?
I don't think he's going to be able to do it if it doesn't happen, because he's got these tax credits that have got to be taken advantage of by a certain time, and that's a part of what's going in. The project's over $3 million and so on dollars, but some of that's going to be funded by these tax credits. So I don't think he can. But another part of this, if you recall, now there's going to be a formal purchase agreement that is being drafted up by the attorneys in Birmingham that work with the redevelopment authority. Although they're not going to be involved anymore, it's going to go straight to the city now, and that will set out some of those terms as well. So that I don't see that it could go any longer than that. Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, you said that the 60 days was because, was it Hilton or someone was asking that they provide additional information? Why was the 60 days in place?
Well, a number of reasons. One of the main ones is that the lender at Hilton required a title survey type thing. I talked to the surveyor this morning. He said, I think I'm going to have it by the end of this week, but he doesn't have it. This guy, Lewis, would like to close as soon as he can. In addition, the Hilton asked for some more economic information for him to be able to show that he could make it go. He had to submit all of that, and they're constantly asking him for something else. But it looks like it's all there. I can't guarantee that. Nobody can guarantee that. But he's more anxious than anybody. He's put a lot of time and money into this.
And I just wanted to make sure that there was the understanding that he was not asking for an extension because he was not ready. Because Hilton has requested additional information. Thank you for being so diligent with this, because you have taken on a huge responsibility, and you've led it with all kinds of grace and taken all of our questions even outside of the chamber. So I really appreciate you doing this.
We'll celebrate when it's done.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Senator.
At this point in time, are there any other individuals who would like to speak for or against as it relates to the public hearing before we close it out? Again, the public hearing is, notice was given on November 13th. Notice was given to the public on October the 27th as it relates to a resolution that was passed on October the 23rd concerning notice given that on November 13th, which is the day that we would have a hearing at 5 o'clock to discuss the sale of the St. James Hotel and to discuss the leasing of the Phoenix Park and entering into an agreement with St. James Hotel LLC on the terms negotiated by the mayor and the city council president and city council, consistent with the terms here, which is included as part of the 772 that was ran in the newspaper. So at this point in time, we'll close out the public hearing with the citizens. The next thing we have before you, City Council, is the resolution. You have heard from Attorney Gamble as it relates to approving Resolution 114-18/19. This resolution extends our original agreement with St. James LLC back in December of 2017. They're requesting an amendment for an additional 60 days until January the 31st, 2019, in order to allow time for the developer to complete the financing and related requirements requested to complete the sale and lease of the contemplated issues that's in the resolution and ordinances.
At this time, do I have a motion on the floor for resolution R114-1819 for additional 60 days? We have a motion on the floor by Councilman LaShaw, second by Councilwoman Youngblood. Any discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Boling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
No.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Okay.
Thank you, City Council. The next, we have ordinance 118-17/18. This ordinance was placed on first reading by the Selma City Council. It's up for approval and passage on tonight. The sale of the St. James Hotel, the Bienville Building, and the Dallas B&C Building. You have ordinance 118-17/18, which give the descriptions of all parcels of property, which was stated, and then you also have the sale amount, the purchase amount, the sale amount, and giving the authority for the mayor and the city clerk to authorize and execute a test and respectfully direct them to proceed with signing any documents needed to convey the property and carry out the terms of the agreement at closing. That's ordinance 118-17/18.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to move forward with ordinance 0118-1718, the selling of the St. James Hotel and Dallas P&C Building.
So moved, Mr.
We have a
President.
motion on the floor by Councilwoman Youngblood. Do we have a second? Second, Councilman LaShaw. Discussion? Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Boling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
No.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
The ordinance passed.
Thank you, City Council. Next item that you have ordinance number 100-100-18/19. This is an ordinance to lease the Phoenix Park to the St. James Hotel LLC. We placed this on first reading during our last City Council meeting. This is not a sale, but this is a lease. And you have a description of the properties within the same. Is as stated in the other ordinances, directing the mayor and giving him permission along with the City Council President to authorize and be directed to execute and attest respectfully for and on behalf of the City of Selma the lease agreement and any other documents needed to lease the premises described here and above and included within ordinance number 100-18/19.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to move forward with the lease of the St. James, Phoenix Park.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman LaShaw, second by Councilwoman Youngblood. Any further discussion? Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Boling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
No.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Okay, all right, the ordinance passed for the lease of the Phoenix Park. Okay, turn it on. Turn it on.
Okay, thank you, City Council. We appreciate it. We had a public meeting on the St. James Hotel, and we have approved the ordinances as relates to the sale of St. James, and we approved the ordinance for the lease of the Phoenix Park. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now back to the agenda. Council members, you have before you the regular agenda for November 13th, 2018, 5 p.m. council meeting. And I promise you, next time I'm going to have our letterhead on the agenda. I promise I have the letter at this time.
Doing good, Mr. Secretary.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Today's 13th.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. President.
We have a motion by Councilman Bowling. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second, Councilman Youngblood. Any further discussion? Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
All right, the regular agenda was passed unanimously. I guess I need to put on my glasses for this consent agenda. Council members, we have 9 items to consider for the consent agenda. I'm going to ask you if you would remove consent item number 2 and consent item number 3 due to the fact that we don't have, currently have no one in code enforcement now. So we'll just table that. And also consent item number 4, table that also with the $15,000 transportation enhancement project on Highway 80 East. I think we need to get with the county and also with our finances here. So that leaves us on the 6 items for the consent agenda. Consent item number 1, to approve resolution R1112, that's 1819, authorizing the Dallas County Commission to submit an application to ADACA Recreational Trail Program for trails to be located within the city of 7 city limits. This is no cost to the city. Consent item number 5, to approve Hobbs and Hain PC firm to assist the city of Selma with some new development projects. Consent item number 6, to approve the annual statement in the amount of $11,171. Consent item number 7, to approve a film permit for cold water media. Consent item number 8, to ratify and affirm a film permit for Bridal Moon LLC. And consent item number 9, to approve resolution R113, that's 1819, approving the budget amendment to the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget for Mr. John Walker and Mr. Terry Ward, Recreation Department, in the amount of $15,080. Ms. Julie Porter, Personnel Department, $26,000. Mr. John Lawson, Labor 2, $15,080. Ms. Lola Sewell, Code Enforcement, $31,200. And the secretary for the office of the city clerk. Go ahead.
On item number 9, it is to my understanding, I'm not sure, that the workers that was inadvertently omitted from the budget and now it's being replaced with the budget amendment has already been reinstated and has already received their back pay. If that is the case, then I'm gonna move that Ms. Lola Sewell, to my understanding, have not been paid. So she needs to be reinstated as the others, and she needs to be compensated as the
Yes, sir.
So for a matter of record, please make sure that she's compensated and hopefully that she's paid by tomorrow.
Okay, all right. At this time, council members, we have before you 6 items for the consent agenda. The chair will now entertain a motion to place all 6 items on the agenda and move forward. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman LaShaw. Do we have a second? Second, Councilman Bowling. Roll call now. Discussion, okay.
So are we saying that all of these other people are back, they're reinstated and have been paid?
Councilman LaShaw.
What I'm saying is, if they have, I don't know. And I think I preface my comments that if they haven't, and Ms. Lola Sewell have not, then she needs to be compensated as the others have been. So that
Okay.
mistake.
Okay.
So we're leaving number 9 on?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Bowling. Second that motion.
That's it.
Okay, second, Councilman LaShaw. Madam Clerk, roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowe?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Thank you. The consent agenda was approved. Council members, you have before you the October the 23rd council minutes. Hopefully everyone has had the opportunity to peruse the minutes. Are there any corrections, deletions? At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to.
So moved, Mr. President.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Benjamin. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Moline. Any further discussion, question? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowe?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
All right. The October 23rd minutes were approved unanimously. Now to the citizens' request. We have Mr. Clyde Richardson, cameras and procedures. Mr. Richardson, if you please come forward. And once you get to the 4-minute mark, I'll put the one finger. I'm not in a Baptist church now.
We're gonna let you get there. How y'all doing?
He needs all his minutes.
We're gonna talk about concerning protecting the served, and what that was on our agenda. And what it's about, you know, is about doing right and following and seeing to the people are doing right by the law and making sure things are carried out with diplomacy and courtesy. And I gotta commend 2 city employees for that job being well done, and who did it and set a prime example for their lower pews, and set example by them being in a high capacity. It's Captain King with the 7th Police Department and Chief Stevens for the 7th Fire Department. I want to give them applause for what they've done. They've done a whole lot of They've done a great job. And the other issue we had was about cameras. We need cameras. There are grants out there available for us to try to find out to get cameras for downtown Selma. And it would bring a lot of peace. We may not have manpower to enforce the entire downtown Selma, but if we got cameras, street cameras, not to be able for the city to go from business to business and say, could I see your camera, could I see your camera, could I see it? Hope we can catch some. If people know that the camera is on, everybody's going to act and create a better circumstance for all of us in this whole city. If the city could be downtown, could be used for everyone, we need cameras. It's something to be considered. I know there's grant money out there. And if we just get our grant right, or whoever that may be, to try to look into this and try to see if we can get something ready to get this ball started. Last but not least, go ahead. Last but not least, follow-up procedures. I don't know what the type of follow-up procedures this council has, but I think we should look into it and come up with a written procedure of how follow-ups of whatever people come before this council, no matter who it may be. If they come here with a legitimate issue, and there should be a follow-up, because if I came or anybody else stepped in front of this council to bring an agenda to y'all, that means they have followed every legal course that is in this city, all the way up through the mayor's office, and hadn't got what they was out for, or was they right or wrong. If a person is wrong, you're wrong. But if you're right, we need to follow it up. And I think the council should have somebody that say, hey, that's your agenda, we need you to follow it. And get some feedback on it. Not just forget about it and say, oh, let's put it in the garbage. We shouldn't do that. And it's happened a lot. And I know people have came here, and this was their last recourse to come to this council to try to get some justification. And by coming here, there was no other avenue except attorneys. But we're not looking into that. This is next to the last. My thing is, we need a follow-up procedure.
Well, thank you, Mr. Richardson, for coming before us. And I do concur with you. We definitely need to follow up some of the concerns that come before this council, but you can also agree, I originated the cameras for the clubs in the downtown area.
That's not true.
But I do concur with you, with the Public Safety Committee, we would definitely look into putting cameras downtown. From my understanding, I thought we had some cameras downtown, but I would get with our IT. I would get with our IT department to see if we would definitely put cameras downtown, and I would definitely, follow up with you with the cameras and also, any other concerns that you bring before this council.
We sure appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Mr. Richardson, before you go, if we have not followed up with you on this in a timely manner, please come back.
I did.
Please.
On my issues, I did. I didn't quit.
Come back again.
And I will say, we are in the right direction now. It's good.
Good.
Also, too, when our next public safety meeting, I would definitely invite you to it because I'm chairing the public safety committee now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, next we have Attorney Julian McPhillips, Rights of Employees.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be in this historic city and to speak to you, city councilmen and women, about what I'm here to speak to you on tonight. As I said in a letter that I sent you by email this afternoon, I think all of you should have got it. Several councilmen told me they have. And I've given a hard copy up there to every one of you as well. A couple of them. I've attached other correspondence, some of which has been sent to you, the city council, over recent times, and others of which have been sent to the mayor. I think you're in really dire danger, and I say this with utmost respect to each and every one of you here, but dire danger of having almost a dictatorship put onto you here in this city. It's just gone too far. A man who just ignores the law, ignores your own city council rulings. Twice I've been here before, and you have reinstated Ms. Renita Wade. And I'm representing her tonight as treasurer. Also, I mentioned Carnegie Ellison and 3 police officers, Tori Neely, Jeff Hardy, and Kendall Thomas. But let me speak to Ms. Wade first. Ms. Wade has twice been reinstated by you, and twice reinstated. And to say that the mayor somehow thinks he can get around it by putting her sort of on paid leave, that just doesn't do it. The reality is she has been terminated. She is not working. She's not able to stand up to his power and keep the money of the city of Selma from being spent so unwisely as it is being spent now. Money both for his personal initiatives and money for other things that are very unwise. It keeps an adequate supply of money being available for pay the employees of the city. And so, I mean, this is a tragedy, and it's a greater tragedy about to happen if you fellas and ladies do not stand up to this mayor and tell him he's gone too far. First, you need to reinstate Ms. Wade again, a third time. Okay? I mean, you did it the last 2 times, I think, by increasing vote the second time over the first time. I think it was 5-4 the first time, 7-2 the last time. I'd like to see it be 8-0 today. And tell him that he just cannot do this because you need to have her there looking out for you. She is your watchdog, so to speak. I mean, you put her there to begin with, and you reinstated her twice, and it's just a shame for what's happened here. I pointed out to you even how one of the things that apparently upset him was that she did not approve money for personal expenditures that he wanted to spend that were just unwise, and not related necessarily to the city. Also, he, so that, I mean, that raises real serious problems right there. Also, I talked about how when she was last restored to her job, the contempt that was extended to her by the mayor and by his staffer, Sabrina Simmons, coming to his office and spitefully in front of Ms. Wade's face, tearing up a memo that Ms. Wade had addressed to the mayor, disallowing reimbursement for certain non-official but personal expenses. I mean, the city of Selma's treasury is not to be a personal piggy bank for this mayor. It is not. And not only the employees not getting paid, but the city of Selma is looking at much worse things happening to it down the road if you folks do not stand up to it. And so I've called upon you to do it. I've attached some letters. Also, very much dismayed by what happened to these 3 police officers. Sergeant Jeff Hardy, Lieutenant Tori Neely, Sergeant Kendall Thomas. They, first of all, were put on paid administrative leave, but no word was given to them about what in the world they had done wrong. They had no idea. I called the chief of police and Mr. Collier, and at first he wouldn't tell me, but I guess I read in the newspapers that he said it might have had something to do with some letter being opened improperly. Well, these police officers have nothing to hide. They want to be out in the street fighting crime for you. And so they cooperated completely in some investigation that turns out, well, you know, we looked all around. The Ethics Commission went on this. The District Attorney's Office had nothing to do with it. And finally, we found that the State Attorney General's Office had somehow been suckered into it by the Mayor's office to look into it. And they put Attorney General investigators on these 3 police officers. They were happy to cooperate, and they told them the truth is they knew it on every item. But the Attorney General's investigators apparently thought that they must have said something that was not true to him, you know, just prejudging, and indicted each of the 3 based on that for the felony of misrepresenting something to a law enforcement investigator, if you can believe that. I mean, it just makes my blood boil. And I hope it makes your blood boil, because it's such a travesty, and it's such a, it's gone wild here. And the mayor's working hand in glove with somebody in the Attorney General's office. We finally, after a week or 2 of knocking on their doors, finally found out who they were. They were hiding from us for a while. But we got 3 letters now attached to the packet of letters, and says that they are even disallowed from coming into government buildings. I spoke to about 3 of you, and I thought I had your sort of understanding it was okay for them, and it certainly is okay. It's a First Amendment right of freedom of access to courts. And this is what this is, for the 3 to be here. And they are sitting here on the back row today because they have a right to be here, because I'm speaking up for them. And it's just, again, a travesty. It's run wild, and I know that most, if not all of you, have the guts and the courage to stand up to it. And then finally, Ms. Carney Ellison is also here with me today. She has been at one point sort of the second in command of the City Parks and Recreation Department, then maybe demoted to an administrative assistant of some sort. But she is the second in longevity over there, has over 15 years of service. And the only one above her had more service. Under the rules for layoffs and reinstatement, she is, seniority is supposed to be taken into effect. And Mr. Van Diver has allowed somebody who's worked there less time to take her job. She has filed some EEOC charges. She has a right to do that, as you should know. And it's supposed to be an anti-retaliation provision, and there is under the EEOC laws, but she's been retaliated against big time. So he's just opening up the city of Selma to liability potential that shouldn't be there. And you folks can reinstate her too, because it's just a pretext and a cover-up for them to say, oh, well, you know, we're just doing it for reasons of economy. They're really doing it to get back at her for having the guts to stand up and speak out. And so I'm here on behalf of all 3. You have a crisis, if you don't already know it. I'm sure most of you do know it. A real crisis in this town. And you, as Mr. Richardson said a moment ago, you're sort of the avenue of last resort. First resort too, but last resort. The only place that folks can come and really speak their hearts and minds to you. And so I ask you to stand up for democratic government, stand up to this mayor. I mean, there are the things that can happen. The day may come when he may have to be impeached. You know, that's right. Yeah. I'm sorry, I've heard it said by enough people that I don't feel like I was speaking out of and I sent a letter to you, Mr. Jimmy Nunn, too, saying that with respect to those who cannot be reinstated in front of the city council, we ask that they be reinstated by a hearing in front of the proper body. But I think Ms. Wade especially not only can be, she already has been twice reinstated by you. And I ask that you reinstate her again today by unanimous vote. Send the mayor a message.
Councilman Randolph.
Attorney, I applaud your effort. I said all along that the mayor and the police chief, they come up with these bogus charges against people who try to set people up, you know.
That's right.
And that don't make no sense. And even myself, they brought bogus charges against me. Right. But this council didn't even come to my defense. And I'm on the council, so I know how they feel, because I don't appreciate nobody bringing a bogus charge against law-abiding citizens just because you got a problem the way they do, but they not part of your clique. And that's against the law that's abuse of power between the mayor and the police chief. I don't care what nobody says, that's abuse of power. And it ain't fair to our citizens for them to keep putting us in all these doggone frivolous lawsuits. And see, we at the council, we sitting back here quiet, but the mayor gonna break this city. And the police chief, they gonna break us. And nobody cares. Everybody up here, everybody won't be quiet and political correct. It's time out for being political correct.
You're right.
You know, he flashed my picture on all the TVs around the country. I was in California and a lady recognized me from Selma, Alabama for peeing on the street. I'm in San Francisco. And so, but all said and done, you know, we just cannot continue to let these frivolous lawsuits gonna affect us. You talking about our employees, we got over 30-some lawsuits, but nobody is saying that. I can't say the word I want to say, but I'm teed off by the way they handle our employees, especially them police officers. You got the best 3 good police officers in the city. Now you trying to, cause of some Auburn football team, you trying to fire them. It's a such thing as a whistleblowing law. I'm telling you, everybody knows it's a such thing as a whistleblowing law. I'm not saying they whistleblow, but I'm glad they put it out there if they did. But the council, we know about it and we ain't did nothing yet. And it's unfair for them to order some football tickets with city money. Y'all know it's unfair. But we're gonna sit here and take the quiet road because we afraid of the mayor. I ain't got nothing to lose. I don't have nothing to lose. I'm telling you, I don't have nothing. I'm not afraid of the mayor, I'm not afraid of the police chief.
Well, I hope everybody else has your guts and courage, because
it don't make sense.
The pot's calling the kettle black here. I mean, for them to say that they've done somehow misstated or misused something when they do it themselves so much, it's just outrageous.
Yeah. Councilwoman Benjamin and Councilwoman Thomas.
Yeah, we have. I have lost count of the number of complaints and lawsuits that we have now. There are a plethora of people and complaints from different kinds of harassment to other things. And if you think that's not going to break the city, think again. Because these people have the right to sue now. And they will, and I don't blame them. Some of them are in here tonight, and for good reason. Because this city of Selma consistently does them wrong and breaks the law against employees and citizens.
Right.
It has been methodically done over and over, so much so. Let me tell you when the money is going to appear. The money is going to reappear when the recreation director is put back in his job and the chief of staff position reappears in this budget.
Right.
We know why it disappeared, so to speak. We know why the word crisis is being used. Everybody knows. Because those positions were defunded by the council. And so now, with childish behavior, retaliatory behavior, you want to come back and devastate 68 families. Because of 2 positions being defunded from this budget.
Well, you have called it exactly like it is. You obviously have the courage, and Mr. Randolph as well, and I think the rest of you also really do. I mean, you put Ms. Wade back twice. I say put her back again, but also more than that, send out a message to the mayor that if he doesn't stop doing this, you know, it only takes 5 citizens' signatures to get an impeachment petition to go. Only 5. Only 5. And so, you know, I don't know what else is it can be done. And when the mayor that just totally ignores the law, totally runs roughshod over the city council, kind of, I hate to, use expressions such as shooting the bird, but I mean, he more or less just shows his disrespect about as badly as he can to you guys. I mean, he's ignored you almost from the beginning.
Well, you know, there's a couple, I wasn't finished, I'm sorry, Mr. President. There's a couple things that can be done. We can't do it. There's a couple of things that can be done. The citizens that voted for this mayor can ask him to resign. The citizens that voted for this mayor can ask him to resign. The citizens that voted for this mayor discussed it with him. Ask him to resign by that petition that you speak of.
Right.
The second thing that can happen, council, the mayor has alluded to the fact that if you give him a severance package, he will be gone today. Give it to him. Not the amount he asked for. Not. Yeah, this is a matter of fact. Not the amount he asked for, but if it's legal, give it. And he said he disappeared today. And let's turn this city back around.
So much at stake. It's big banana, so to speak. I mean, it's just time for y'all to do something. And my letters to you sets forth certain things, and we're taking it as far as we have to, and not only in the criminal realm, but in the civil realm as well. We're able to do both. I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Attorney Judy McPhillip, we are by strong, you know. No one is sitting up here is afraid of Mayor Dario Melton, because we are elected officials to do what is right. We are, I know if I have to stand alone, I believe in standing for what is right. And I stand with these workers because I believe that this shouldn't have happened to them. And this is not a game to play, because you play the game so long, you get caught. It gets stopped. And I just want to speak in my behalf as a representative, as a leader.
Well, Ms. Thomas, I'm honored to hear what you have to say, and of course, honored to be here in the first place, and thank you to the city council for allowing me. But I'd say the time for action is past. The time for talking is past. Let's just get something to do.
And may I say this? At the time Mr. Wade was put out this last time, this council, me as a city council, I did not know the reason. No one never brought, we never seen anything from Ms. Wade being dismissed. All we know is that one of our person that we have defunded twice, not once, twice, someone in HR department sent Ms. Wade out of here. And this panel, we have not seen a letter of no words of anything why Ms. Wade was sent out of here. And I stand with Ms. Wade because that is not the way things are done. If we want to run this city as a body of government, we need to see this council. You're asking us to do what's right. That downstairs needs to do what's right too. Because someone in that department sent Ms. Wade out, and this panel do not know what was on that letter to this day, why Ms. Wade was sent out.
Well, I've sent you my letter telling you what she was told by the mayor's office, and you know, the check torn up in front of her face, or the memo that she gave to the mayor that he shouldn't be spending money for personal purposes, and that showed how much he respected that advice. You know, and it's time. I hope for you, ladies and gentlemen, to show him how much he needs to respect your advice, because he has not.
Thank you. Mr. McPhillips, I like Renee very much, and I know those police officers very well. I've worked with them for many years, and I like them very much. But there are some questions also that I have to ask you a question that I don't really want to ask, don't really want to talk about, especially in front of other people. Right. But if we're going to, you know, look at the things that we really need to try to do what is correct and the right thing, I have to ask you this. Sure. In the newspaper it was reported that there was an investigation by the Attorney General's office. And I need to ask you, have you talked with anybody at the Attorney General's
Absolutely, I have talked.
And is there an investigation still, is there an investigation ongoing, and can we expect to hear something about that soon? How are we supposed to know if, you know, are they going to let us know if that was bogus, if something was sent over to them that was bogus, if there's something still going on? You know, we don't need to reinstate people and then look foolish because if there's something that somebody's gotten them into and then it winds up having to be, you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
My thinking is we need to make sure that that is concluded, and it's like we have. It looks to me like we have several different things going on here. We've got things that you have said are correct, but I'm just leery of, with something outstanding like that, I think that's pretty serious business.
Well, I'm happy to tell you, Attorney David Sawyer here, who's with me, and was it 2 days ago, David, that we spoke to him? Finally got up with him after a week and chased him down. And they could not, or would not, or were unable to explain to us exactly what it was any of my police officers have been charged with. And by the way, the indictment itself does not say. It does not say. It just spits out the language of the statute, but gives no specifics. It's ground for the whole indictment to be tossed out of the court without giving specifics. I've been there several times. And they could come back and try to re-indict. I think they snuck it through some kind of grand jury. I mean, not one of the DA's office, but one from the Attorney General's office. Attorney General can convene a grand jury at any time. He's got the power. He's sort of the head DA of the state. And I think what they apparently charged him with, they said, oh, they didn't tell us the truth when we spoke to them on the investigation about, they're not charged with mishandling the guns in the office. They're not charged with opening an envelope or taking tickets. It's that they did not speak to us truthfully. And I warn each and every one of you not to talk to Attorney General's investigator, because they can slap an indictment on you real quick. It's that bad. It's that bad. And they cannot and will not, or unable, not even the indictment itself, or on the telephone or anything else, Mr. Sawyer be my witness, to tell us what it is. But somehow they're claiming that they acted false. I just think there's a secret conspiracy of some sort going on between the mayor's office and these folks in the Attorney General's office. And they're working in collaboration with each other. And I'm sorry that that's happened. I just think you guys need to stand up. And we're standing up all weekend. We're filing a lot. We've already filed some motions. We'll be filing some more. And we hope to have this criminal charges totally dismissed. But meanwhile, I think you could show your confidence in these men. I mean, they haven't been charged with mishandling tickets, mishandling guns, mishandling an envelope, anything like that. It's nothing like that. Just that they spoke to an Attorney General's investigator, and somehow the investigator decided that what they said might not be true. So we charge them with speaking falsehoods. There is a law against that. You shouldn't speak falsehoods to law enforcement. Of course, they're law enforcement themselves, or have been. And, you know, they should have treated their brother law enforcement officers with a little bit more respect, but they did not. And I think it emanates out of the mayor's office. So I just think it's time for you folks to stand up and say something to the mayor. Say something to the Attorney General if you want, you know. But say something to stand up for your brothers that are being persecuted on the streets. They want to be out there fighting crime. They want to be out there stopping all these shootings, but they're not allowed to. And so, so we ask, you know, at the very least, if they're not allowed to be reinstated by your orders, to have a city council hearing, or personnel board hearing, we requested. But Ms. Wade needs to be reinstated a third time.
Councilwoman Thomas.
The question that Mrs. Youngblood asked you, have you talked to the Attorney General about Mrs. Wade?
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, we asked if they had anything, and we didn't hear a word about her. Nobody's charged her with anything. And this too there's always been these rumors going around for months old that somebody's investigating her. And I don't know how many times she and I have talked, and I've even spoken to Chief Collier. Chief Collier didn't know of anything against her. I've talked to Chief Collier. He couldn't tell me anything about Miss Wade that had been done wrong. Oh, they said we might want to talk to her someday. We were going to do it how many months ago?
Back in February.
Yeah, back in February. And he didn't keep his appointment. He was supposed to bring some investigator with me, just did not keep his appointment. And so, you know, they have nothing on her. Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, the Ethics Commission, we checked with them, they have nothing on her. The district attorney of this county has nothing on her. We've heard nothing from him. The U.S. Attorney's Office heard nothing from them. The FBI heard nothing from them. No, really, seriously, it's just somehow Daryl Melton must know somebody in the Attorney General's office that he got to get the attention of the fellow who was just elected for the first time and probably won't be in office for much longer because he himself violated a lot of laws against illegal transfers of PAC money. You wait and see. The district attorney of Montgomery County is investigating the Attorney General right now. He's got a letter, at least to him, on that. So we will be interested to see how long the current Attorney General stays in office. Really?
I don't have a question. I got a comment. You know, Ms. Wade don't handle the money. A lot of people say, oh, Ms. Wade, this and anything Ms. Wade signed off on, guess what? The mayor signed off on. So if Ms. Wade did something wrong, he did something wrong because he wasn't signed off on it. He signed off on it before she did it. I'm telling you, I'm turning on.
Yes.
So can we do something besides sit here and wish and wonder? Because the last time we had to wait on him to fire her before we could take action. So I'm tired of Ms. Wade sitting at home walking young and the rest of it. Because see, because the only thing the mayor's trying to do is get rid of Ms. Wade so he can say, oh, the city broke, we ain't got no money. That's all it's about. So attorney, can we take any kind of action? You do our attorney?
Well,
because you know.
Well, what has happened, if I'm correct, and Ms. Wade is on administrative leave with pay. The city council does not have the authority to place anybody on administrative leave. Administrative leave is an executive right dealing with the executive branch of government. What initiates the legislative branch of government is when there has been some type of disciplinary action taken against the employee. Not all employees, but only the employees who are appointed. In this case, i.e. Ms. Wade. You take the other employees who have been mentioned by the attorney here, they would not come before this legislative body. Under the personnel rule manual, there are procedures and policies in place whereby if they want to file a grievance, they can file a grievance. If they want to, if they have been disciplined and they want to file an appeal, they come before the personnel board. That personnel board is in place. The personnel board will either reinstate them if they have been disciplined. But the personnel board does not, it specifically states that they do not handle, or it leaves out, let me say that, they do not handle administrative leave issues. That's one of the things that they do not handle. But state law is very clear as it relates to Ms. Wade that if, as we've been going through this twice, that if there's some type of disciplinary action, city council, if you recall, the mayor will bring it to you stating that he has taken disciplinary action against the appointed individual. At that point in time, you will call for a hearing. When you call for that hearing, you can agree with the mayor, disciplinary action, it will be upheld, or you can do as you have done in the past. You have brought her back. You have reinstated her. But you cannot reinstate anyone that is not been disciplined or in a position to be reinstated. She is still receiving her pay. She is still an employee. She is still she's on administrative leave. That's a function of the administrative staff, the mayor. That's his function to place employees on administrative leave. This council has never, since the 18 years that I've been here, have placed anyone on administrative leave. The authority is not within this body to place anybody on administrative leave, but it's within the mayor's office. That's his order within the executive branch of government to place individuals on administrative leave.
So,
yes.
So can we get an injunction to bring Ms. Wade back? Because we need to know our finance situation.
Now, that's something that the city council, if you desire to vote to do a declaratory judgment, or if you want to file some type of injunction to enjoin the mayor as really, then that's your prerogative. You are a body that can vote to give the authority to file lawsuits on behalf of the city of Selma. You are the body that comes when we're defending. It comes before the city council. So that's your right. If you desire to file a lawsuit, then it can be done. Yes, sir.
We have Councilman Bowen and Councilman
What is the longevity that the mayor can place somebody on administrative leave for turning on? Is there any limitation to the amount of time that someone can sit getting paid for not doing their job?
Well, see, what we have here too is just a de facto termination.
Thank you.
You take substance over form.
Thank you. I'm just asking him that specific question.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be, a question for the courts to answer, you know, because administrative leave is predicated upon, is sitting on top of what the issues are for placing the person. So it varies.
It's not gonna be like a Ollie Davidson type situation where he's on leave and then gets fired and comes back to find out later that he's been terminated, and even though he wasn't notified that he was terminated during the process. So we're not looking at anything that nobody knows anything secretly that she's been terminated. And no one's telling us, right?
But the judge will look at that and they can make a determination. As Councilman Randolph, they can order. They can put an order out there to enjoin the mayor, to order him that she be placed, or whatever. You know, the judge order that in the declaratory judgment. Yes.
All right, thank you.
That can be done, and he will decide, you know, whether or not anything has been done wrong.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Thomas. Yes, that's what I wanted to ask Attorney Nunn about doing to make this move forward. We can do it, declare, take action against.
You do it tonight. You do it tonight.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because I feel like that it's something that we need to do because we have this city is where we have people that are in the finance office, that where this body doesn't get any information on the status of the city finance. Even though when we request for our manager of finance to come, or either we request for our tax collector to come to give us a report of the finance coming in, no one's come because the mayor refused. He doesn't allow them to come. And this is not fair to this body that this is a city government that's being run where we as leaders that we don't even know right now our status of our income, what this city has. And this is why we have to do what we have to do to make sure that we know exactly.
Yeah.
And we have to step that up to do something.
I just don't want the city council to spill over into the executive branch of government, and I don't want the mayor's office spilling over into the legislative branch of government, you know. So it's a thin line to follow, but every branch of government, they have their responsibilities and duties and authority that is outlined by state law. But as I stated, you know, that's within the city council if you desire to go that way. It would be an expense on behalf of this city of Selma because you would have to, although we have filed declaratory judgments in the past through my office, but as I advised you on Thursday, the issue, and we'll discuss that at a little later time. But yeah, it can be done.
Councilwoman Thomas, we are going into executive session tonight.
Okay, all right.
But you have the right tonight to do it either in public session or executive session. Put her back to work. You've done it twice before. We urge you to do it again by unanimous vote.
Councilwoman.
Council members, let me also share with you, if I have not already, that way back in the summer, I spoke with State Senator Hank Sanders, State Representative Prince Chestnut, concerning this whole clown show that we kept going into back and forth. Bring the treasurer back and send her home, bring the treasurer back. Around this same time last year, we had this same show, this same rodeo we rode. I warned us of this, that I knew it was coming. We didn't know how it was going to come, but we knew it was coming. And so over the summer, I spoke to our 2 state legislators to say, work on this where this cannot happen anymore. I'm talking to the people who made those laws and sent them down. Work on this where this clown show will not happen again, where we are back and forth. How many times can a person do this? How many times back and forth must we go right around budget time, right around the end of the fiscal year, right around when reports are due, and right around when you want to call for a manufactured crisis? You want to send the city treasurer home because it's the only way you can make it work. It is the only way you can make this thing work is to send her to the house where she cannot see the books, where she cannot see what you're doing, where she cannot defend what you are saying. Because you're certainly not giving the documents to the council up here. Even council members who thought they could get it, can't get it. You're not giving anything to anybody. And you got that room down there on lock, literally on lock and figuratively on lock.
But by sending her home, you remove the guardian of the public treasure, and give him the chance to just do whatever he wants to do, no matter how much it benefits himself or other friends of his. Meanwhile, the city of Selma employees go unpaid. And so if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, you've heard it.
It's a duck.
Yeah, it's a duck. And so if it looks like a termination, walks like one, then it is a termination. She's been terminated, just put her on a little extra money to the city, not pay her. So, I mean, just put her back to work. It's the third time we're here. And it's the only honorable thing to do. And if, you know, if they don't do what they had to do the next time, then we're coming after them, you know. I mean, not just civilly, but, and we will always consider the city council to be our friends. We won't be coming after you guys at all.
Well, council members, I advise you to do the same, call your state representatives, to let them know you're also concerned about this back and forth, and that you would like a piece of legislation to say, at a certain point, this cannot happen anymore.
Right.
It just can't happen again at a certain point. You send someone home, okay, you show good reason you sent them home, and it's happened one time. The council reinstates them, then you can't do this anymore.
Let this be that night.
You can't do this anymore. You can't go back and forth like that anymore. So we have a new state senator now. And so I alluded this to her also as well in a meeting where we met with some employees whose name I would never call because I don't want them to be retaliated against. I alluded that to her as well, that the mantle is being passed to you, and I will bring the same statement to you that I did with your father and that I did with State Representative Chestnut. We don't want this clown show to go back and forth. Find a piece of, and these two representatives, let me add, were very, very open to what I was saying. They offered to go and find legislation that they could tack onto or to create. It's a problem, it's more difficult when you have to create a brand new piece of paper than to tack on a piece of paper that's already there.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. McPhillips?
Now, Dean, I'd ask Mr. Nunn, we've asked for a personnel board hearing for the others that city council cannot review, but the city council can review this way. She's in your bailiwick. And ask him for the personnel board hearing on the others. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you.
And also, happy birthday.
Oh, yeah. Tell me I don't look 72.
Mr. President, I was under the impression that we was going to be hearing from our auditors. As you very well know, one of our number one concerns in this city is finance. Yes. I want to draw your attention to a document that was given to us on October 23rd. And this is from the accounting manager of the finance department. Total expense that was due by October 31st was $1,570,000. What we had on October the 23rd in the general fund was $2,000. Total revenues anticipated for that amount was $824,000, Mr. President, which left us $755,000 short in paying our indebtedness. So I'm hoping all of us that are here tonight is going to shine the light on these cities' finance, because some of us up here seem to think that we got money galore. And that's kind of the reason that we don't. And I'm hoping that the auditors are going to share, first and foremost, what the finance of the city is and as it relates to the audit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. LaSure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now to the mayor's report, the auditor. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Waits. I'm with Carruthers and Ingram. Maybe I can hold it. I'll be doing some cooking. So I don't know if each of you have a packet that looks like this. Some of you were met with you earlier, so hopefully you brought those with you tonight. Like I said, my name is Andrew Waits. I am an auditor of Carruthers and Ingram. We have an office in Birmingham. We also have offices in other areas across the southeast, but we operate out of Birmingham. So I guess the point of tonight, first of all, I'd like to thank those of you who were able to meet with us earlier, a couple of weeks back, maybe a month ago now. We sat down and kind of went over in detail what I'm going to go over a lot more briefly tonight, just because I know there's a lot of things on the agenda. But I wanted to let you know a little bit about the audit process, what we do, how we go about it, and then kind of go into a few of the financial highlights from the year. Now, we are talking about the audit of September 30th, 2017. So we're a little bit, or this is long, almost a year behind now, so we're getting ready to go into the audit of 2018 here shortly. For the audit, a lot of times people think, hey, auditors come in and they look at every single transaction, every single thing that goes into the bank or out of the bank. That's not true. We developed something that's called materiality, and that's the basis for what we use on all of our testing. So that amount is based on a lot of different factors, but we also go in and at the very beginning of the audit, our first step is to say we want to do a risk assessment. So our audit procedures are focused on areas that, based on our opinion, are most likely to be misstated or have misstatements or any kind of errors in them. So that could be, depending on the city or depending on any other organization, they could vary widely. A lot of times we like to focus on things that require a lot of judgment or estimate, because there's a lot of things that could vary with those type of transactions. Like I said before, we do not look at every single transaction. We do something called sampling. So we'll take a sample of transactions and look at those, and based on those results, we extrapolate that out into the remaining population and get us comfort over those transactions. So we don't have to be here all year round, sitting in a closet somewhere, ticking and tying every single dollar that comes in and out of the city. So if you would, if you have your folder here, I'd like to go through a few of the items with you. First thing is on page 1, if you flip to the tab that says report. Out of this, that is the only thing in this whole binder that belongs to us. The rest of these are the city's financial statements. They belong to you. However, this is our audit opinion on those financial statements. And this audit that we did, it's a financial statement audit. It's not a fraud audit. It's not any kind of investigative where we're going in and looking for anything in particular. We just are doing an audit that says the end result is we're going to give an opinion on whether or not those financial statements are, like I said before, materially accurate. And that's what we've done. So this opinion is an unmodified opinion, which means it's a kind of another term would be a clean opinion. That's the opinion that you would want. There's been a lot of work to get to this point. However, we are here and we're saying that we're agreeing that these financial statements are materially accurate and represent the city in a material fashion. If you would flip over to the next tab, financial statements, to kind of give you a brief description of general.
There are some of us who are not privy to this darkness because we chose to allow your presentation to be presented to the entire public rather than to the council in seclusion.
Right. Okay, well, we're here today to do that, and we're here also to help, meet when everybody, and when anybody asks us to be at the city, we'll be here to help present. So here, I'm sorry, do you not have a copy with you?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'll try to describe it to you, and there are copies of the mayor's office that they have.
In his office, he has the ones that wasn't present. There, he said he was gonna give them to him. They in his office.
Does anybody know if the mayor's here? Mayor, if you're listening, could you please have my...
The mayor got in his car and said he was not coming to this meeting. I said, Mayor, you coming to me? What for?
He has all the rest of the ones that wasn't present.
Yeah.
He has them.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Okay, all right.
So there's really...
And I'll be satisfied. Is your county principles governed on federal A-123?
I'm sorry?
Is your county principles governed on federal county principles A-123?
A-133?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that A-133 is the previous guidance on single audit. So it's now referred to as uniform guidance. And so there was a single audit for the fiscal year ending 9/30/17, which is a federal compliance audit. That's
the federal grants and stuff.
It's the federal grants, right. So when you receive federal money, there are certain requirements that the grantee says, hey, you must spend this money only on these type of projects. Well, that's what that type of audit, which is in conjunction, it is included in this audit, but it's separate. It's a separate opinion. It's actually in the very back. So that's a compliance audit. I'm more talking about the financial statement audit where your normal, because you would have a financial statement with or without a single audit.
And that's just for the federal programs that money earmarked for
Right,
certain
so it's
things.
earmarked for certain projects and certain expenses. For example, you get a grant of $1 million to redo a building, you couldn't go pave roads with it or something like that, so.
With admin costs and all that involved with it.
Yes.
What's that?
Administrative costs and all that.
Right, yeah. Every grant has its own, requirements that say, hey, these are what you're allowed. If you are allowed a certain amount of administrative costs or you're not, and it just depends on the grant because there's thousands of them that you can receive. So, there's really two in governmental accounting. Without trying to bore you to death, there's really two sets of financial statements with any municipality or any kind of government in the whole United States. There's the government-wide, which is very similar to a normal company. It has your full accrual basis of accounting. So it has all your property, plant, equipment, it's got your long-term debt, and your, like I said, your full accrual revenue and expenses. Now, what the city is normally budgeting off of and focusing on, you might hear the general fund. That's what that's what you kind of focus on day to day, and that's more of a cash in and cash out. It's not necessarily a cash basis, but it's much more short-term focused, and that's what we'll probably focus on a little bit more this evening. So, for those of you that do have it, it's on page 9. Is the the income statement for the funds. If you would flip those, I can kind of go over a few kind of numbers from the previous year. Comparing taxes from FY17 to FY16, sales taxes have decreased $430,000, while business license decreased $243,000. So those two particular revenues were down $673,000 for the year ended 17 compared to the previous year. Now, total revenues for the general fund were down $719,000, so that just includes various other fines, forfeitures, those type of revenues that also decreased. The expenditures remain approximately the same for the general fund. So that remained, you had about $115,000 of excess of revenues over expenditures at that time, prior to any transfers from the general fund paying other expenditures for other city funds. So when you get down to the very bottom, there was a net deficit of $159,000 for the general fund for the year ended 9/30/17. Now that's just the general fund. You obviously have several other funds that are only focused on your debt payments or your capital projects. So if you go all the way across on page 9, there was $1 million deficit for the overall city governmental funds for the year ended 17. And another thing that's really kind of like, you can say all those kind of numbers and they can sound great, but they kind of look, I like to, personally, if any of you have one of these, it kind of is a good representation, and I can leave a copy of this, or I can send some more up to you if you would like me to. It's kind of a visual representation of 2013 through 2017 of various aspects of the city. So the first one we have here is general fund tax revenues, and it kind of shows, people like that, we just kind of pass it around. Kind of shows you the history of past 5 years of revenues. I'll walk around because I'll need to kind of the revenues that have been for the general fund tax revenues, so sales taxes and any kind of other taxes. And we just pass it around. So as you can see, their revenues decreased approximately, I think the number was about $500,000 for that year. So really one of the problems that the city is experiencing, in my opinion, is that you've had declining revenues with expenditures, as we'll see in a little bit, that have either stayed approximately the same or gone up over the past couple of years. Especially about 2 or 3 years ago, you had a pretty significant increase in general fund expenditures, and there hasn't really, it's dropped some, but it hasn't dropped to the extent that revenue has continued to decline. This next one is very similar. It shows a $242,000 decrease in licenses and permits from 16 to 17, but it is kind of starting to decline in the recent years. One of the most important ones that I think we need to probably focus on is what's called fund balance. So fund balance is what's remaining at the end of the year. Basically, after you have all your assets, you have your liabilities, then you have fund balance. So in that fund balance, a lot of times, a portion of that is already accounted for another type of expenditure. So that's really not able to be used
just for your regular operating activities or regular operating expenses. If you kind of see here, it's a very stair-step decline in the general fund balance, which kind of indicates over time revenues have been exceeded by expenses for, since 2014, it's really dropped down, considerably. And the GFOA, which is kind of a organization that oversees a lot of the governmental financial reporting in the U.S., recommends that you have 90 days of operating reserves in that fund balance, meaning you take your total operating expenses and you divide that by 360, how much does it take you to run the city per day? And then you put that into fund balance, and you want to have at least 90 days worth of reserves. Well, the city's down to 26 days as of September 30th, 2017, and I haven't seen anything, for the current year, but I would expect that it's probably continued to decline since then. And really, since 2014, back in 2014, it was 59 days. 2015, it went to 40. 2016, it was down to 32. And then, as I said, in 2017, it's down to 26. So, in my opinion, that's kind of a sign of, really we have a problem, but we really need to find out either do we have a lot more expenses that we could cut, or do we have new sources of revenue that can be generated in order to compensate for the negative deficit that's been incurred, over the past. It's kind of a trend now. So I would be happy to entertain any questions. We also have like a required communications thing, and we have some audit findings that we can go over, and we've talked about those quite in detail. We're pretty optimistic about being able to get a lot of those addressed. There was, like I said before, a significant number of audit adjustments that were necessary in order to get the books corrected, whether they be just things that either weren't recorded or recorded in an incorrect way or incorrect counts. So, all those adjustments were given to the city and then posted into the books and are now reflected into the audit numbers. So, generally, when you have that number of that number of audit adjustments, it indicates a weakness in internal control of the city. So that's one of our recommendations. One of them is to implement a policies procedures manual, so that we can have a set policy that says, hey, this is what you do when this type of money comes in, and there's no question about, hey, who's doing that, or am I supposed to do it, or what. It just makes it a lot more clear. So I would be happy to entertain any questions that you have.
Councilwoman Jackson, Councilwoman Thomas, Councilwoman Dennis.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. And you did say it initially that it would be brief, and actually it was brief, because we had an opportunity to spend about an hour and a half with you and ask as many questions as we like. I won't ask as many questions as I did on that afternoon. And please I don't mean to be aggressive or confrontational at all, but I want to make sure that I get some fundamental questions asked to ensure that we all have an understanding of the information that you presented on that afternoon, and that the citizens know exactly where we are. So I want to start off with asking you again to give me an overview of your experience. You're not only with auditing in Alabama, your experience, and I think you all talked about that you actually go throughout the country doing trainings and speaking, including the League of Municipalities, Alabama League. So could you speak to that for me?
Yes, so our office in particular, we do a good bit of municipal governmental audits in the city of Alabama, state of Alabama. However, we have other offices across the Southeast that we also work with that do audits all over the Southeast. We even have an office now out in New Mexico. They're kind of the rogue office that's way out there. But we brought them in specifically because of the single audit aspect. They are a top-notch firm that was doing a whole lot of high-level reviews for the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, doing their federal audit review. So basically, whenever we come in and do an audit of a city that has a single audit, well, we get audited too. We say, did we do the audit correctly? That's what they were doing for the AICPA. So they were really a very experienced firm. I personally started in 2006, so I've been here for 12 years. It was the job that I had right out of college, which I did accounting, and I started there, so I've been there ever since. We do a whole lot of training, like not me personally, but other partners in our office do a lot of the Alabama League municipalities. We do the speaking there, a lot of training, training for the state society of CPAs, as well as, you know, training within our office, because we have to get a whole lot of continuing education hours every year, over 40, but we usually get in 60 or 80 by the time that you get done with it, because it's just, there's so much new things that come out every single year that we're having to update ourselves on, and then again pass it down to everyone else in the office. So there's a lot of that.
Okay. Thank you. And I actually referenced that I saw that your partner that was you on that day.
Right. Yeah. Brian Barstow. He's not able to be here. He had another meeting they had to get. He couldn't get out of. So unfortunately, he's unable to be here. But yeah.
But in my short time, I actually saw him at a league function.
Right.
He was speaking, and
yeah.
I asked him about that. And this.
Yeah, they do that.
I asked that because you came in and you worked at the Liberty or at the request of the mayor. Is that correct? But your findings are professional.
Right.
You have no side. You're not siding with the council or the mayor. You have no dog in this fight. Your professional integrity is on the line.
Absolutely.
You provide
we have professional standards that say we can't do anything like that. You know, we are here. Like, I can come in. Numbers are numbers. I can come in, I can present them to you, and our audit is just an audit. You know, it doesn't matter where we are or who it is. We are required to be, you know, independent as auditors. We come in, we have to basically just go through it and say, hey, you know, I don't have any, like you said, dog in the fight. So we are here presenting our findings without any sides to the issue.
Okay. You spoke on that afternoon about input and outputs, and it's pretty fundamental, pretty basic. But one of the things that may have occurred during this audit that you found is things that may have been removed from general fund or placed in general fund from the St. James and back and forth that may not have balanced out. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so originally the St. James Hotel was set up as its own fund. So it was operating separate from the general fund, while the general fund may be occasionally putting money into that fund to pay expenses or whatever. You know, it was operating on its own as it's basically by itself. Now, then during this year, once the St. James, I can't remember the exact date that it was basically ceased operations, there were still expenditures in the general fund that were being paid out of that general fund. However, they weren't being recorded correctly, and so a lot of transactions had to be recorded between the funds in order to get those, you know, expenditures into the correct place.
You said something about training, the number of hours that you all have to spend in training. We discussed on that afternoon the training that our financial office gets and the small amount that we actually have budgeted for that. And, you spoke to the benefits of continuing education hours and the material weaknesses and internal controls that you found with not having our policy and procedure manual. Can you speak regarding those findings, those issues?
Yes, certainly. So anytime you go to, like I said before, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the one who always puts out new pronouncements on governmental accounting. They are coming out with one all the time. It seems like every other day now we have a new pronouncement. A couple years ago it was the pension rules. Now we're basically, they put on a pension liability that represents the unfunded pension liability for the city. This next coming year for 2018, it's going to be the same thing except for other post-employment benefits. So when retirees retire and the city say, okay, we're going to pay a certain amount towards your health insurance until you pass away, and that's obviously has a large liability, you know, tied to it. So that's going to be a new thing. And there's always new things that are coming out that you're able to learn from continuing education. And just hearing things, getting with people, learning like, hey, you know, what have you encountered? What have you seen? How did things work for you? That helps you so much whenever you're able to basically talk to other people who are, you know, experiencing the same type of problems and difficulties that, you know, you might be experiencing.
Do you think that investment into the employees and members of the financial department would make a good return? I recall having a conversation with Ms. Wade in reference to not being allowed to go to a training that she thought was necessary.
Right.
Continuing education, you stated on that day was essential.
Yes.
And do you think that
Yes, I would say it is very essential in order to keep up with the accounting rules, because they, like I said, they change so often that it's almost impossible unless you're regularly learning, and that's why they require accountants, CPAs that have 40 hours every year, because like even that's not even enough sometimes. But you know, you can't keep up with all of it because it's just changing constantly. So
let me ask you a little bit about the finances. You spoke with us about declining revenues and consistent expenditures. And you stated that we either have to curb our expenditures significantly, which we haven't been able to do, or we're going to have to find new ways of revenues. Can you speak to that and where you see? I thought it was most alarming when you stated near the end of the meeting that we had 26 operating days. And so I left out with a different sense of our finances, a greater grasp of things, and I've been trying to look over some other things. But can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously as auditors, we're not making the ultimate management decisions. We can't make any management decisions, in fact. So one of the easiest ways to do it is generating new sources of revenue. Obviously, sometimes you get your expenses to a point where you just can't cut any more expenses. And if that's the decision that's made, then that's true. You know, it just depends. Like sometimes you can't cut anymore. You have a certain amount of expenses and you have a certain number of employees that are needed to fulfill, you know, the level of services that are being offered. And if you go below that, then something's going to suffer. So it's either, you know, that or generating new sources of revenue in order to compensate for the decline in revenues.
When you look at page 5 on your required communications report,
yeah, the separate.
Yes, separate. Sure. Matters to be communicated, difficulties encountered in performing the audit, and your response is about 6 items. Can you go over that and make us aware of those?
Sure. Yeah, so obviously, you know, this was our first year doing the audit, so there are some anticipated additional time learning, you know, kind of like I said before, where you're doing the risk assessment, we kind of go in and we try to assess, you know, how the city processes transactions, how the city operates, so that we can better understand how to audit accurately. So that, you know, with that being said, we would anticipate a little bit of additional time in the first year. However, you know, we're well over a year, and this was back in October when it was actually officially completed. So we're a little bit after that even now, but you know, you basically would expect a little bit of time, but there was significant additional time that we had to involve, mainly due to the adjustments that we were mentioning before. When you have 50-something adjustments or more in order to correct the books, each adjustment basically just leads you to something else, and sometimes that would lead us to another adjustment where there was just more and more transactions that needed to be recorded. And basically, once you find one error, you know, you tend to find more and more, and it makes you unsure whether or not you can continue moving on, so you might have to lower our materiality. Once we find adjustments that need to be, a lot of times we have to consider, well, is risk actually higher, and as our risk goes up, we have to lower our auditing threshold to a lower amount. So then again, that kind of opens up to even more potential adjustments, because we're auditing down to smaller numbers because we found a bunch of errors and can't necessarily rely on the accuracy of the numbers. There was also difficulties too, because, you know, as y'all mentioned before, there was change. Ms. Wade wasn't able to be there at the beginning. Then she came, right, so she came back, was extremely helpful in getting us a lot of the information that we were still waiting on, and that, you know, we were basically just kind of in the dark on trying to figure out who we needed to call at like a financial institution or whatever, in order to just get something that would be, you know, relatively easy in a normal situation where we're either not the first year auditor, or, you know, she had been here. So she was very helpful when she got back to assist us in that. And then there was a lot of things where we just had difficulty getting the information, didn't necessarily know where to go. And then once we found it, you know, we were able to proceed. But you know, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of extra work involved in tracking down, you know, documents and tracking down spreadsheets that we need in order to, you know, actually start the audit procedures, instead of just having that stuff ready and reconciled at the beginning.
Let me ask you, we have findings in this report that have also been cited in previous audits. I
Yes.
see that you provided us with the copy, I think it's page 75, 73.
Yes. So if you go to the very back of the folder part, now we're back to that. So page 69 starts the actual schedule of findings and question costs. Now this is kind of a combined report of our audit findings versus a single audit, which there were no findings with the single audit as far as using federal funds improperly or anything. So that's noted in this report. But the first finding is 2017-1, lack of internal controls over financial reporting. That kind of goes back to the number of adjustments that were necessary in order to get the books corrected. So a lot of times, if they're not corrected by the time the audit starts, it not only increases the audit time, but it just increases it. It's an indication that adjustments and there's weaknesses that need to be corrected in order to, be operating, in a function in a way that the city would really want to be. Because you don't. Ideally, you would have an audit come in and we don't post any adjustments because the audit's already, the financial statements are already accurate and complete and ready. A lot of times there are some adjustments, usually not this many, but you would hope that we can get to a point where we're limiting it down to maybe just a couple per year.
You spoke to that, you said not this many. How often, this is, I guess, my second audit, and I don't recall having an opportunity to speak with the auditors last year, but they did come and present, and I didn't recall this many findings. What's the difference? Is it generally that a government body this size would have this many findings? Is it something that's that put us at risk? Just what's your
It's a little unusual to have the number of adjustments that were necessary for 17. I would say for sure. Like I said, you wouldn't really want to have any, but typically in a municipality the size of Selma or in that region area, I would say you might have less than 10 or 5. But really, any material audit adjustment that we have, if you had one material adjustment, then it's by nature a material weakness because the city's internal control process didn't detect it by itself. So really the number and the significance of the audit adjustments kind of play into the fact of whether or not you have a weakness.
Okay, so and I was actually going to ask because our treasurer was out, but if we had the policy and procedure manual, that would have covered. It doesn't matter who's in place. If our treasurer is out for 4 months or the entire year, they're able to go in and operate because of the manual.
Right. Yeah, I think a manual would be highly recommended, in fact, for that very reason. If somebody gets sick, you still want to be able to have somebody that can go pick it up and know exactly what to do, in case they're not there.
You spoke at the meeting about being able to assist in some capacity, maybe with, in a consulting manner, in providing those documents. I think we discussed that there are firms that actually provide you a policy and procedure manual crafted to your organization, and for set fee. So we don't have to go and make one as Ms. Wade has been trying to do when she's in the office and allowed to be able to do that. But we could actually get something crafted and brought in for our city. We think that's something that needs to be done immediately.
I would say I would recommend it being pretty high up there, top priority, because as auditors, we have, like I said before, we need to be independent, so we can't come in and give you a set of policies and procedures that we come back and audit after that, because we're basically auditing ourselves. So we have to make sure that we're independent, but we can give you some sources. There's various websites out there that already have a lot of templates set up so that you're not starting from scratch. And if you start from scratch, it's going to be a very arduous and very difficult process in order to get all the information that you want to cover every type of transaction. And there'll be some things in the templates that aren't really necessary for the city of Selma, and so those can be taken out, but at least you're not starting at ground zero and having to just create everything from nothing.
One last question. I know.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I do remember you saying you'd be
brief. I'm trying to be brief. One last question. I'm looking at the previous year schedule, the prior year audit findings, 2016-003 bail bond and restitution fund, and I also think you all cited the bail bond and restitution fund. I saw it earlier. I wanted to see were you aware. I think it was in 2012. Yes. No, 2009. In October 2010. I want to know if you were aware that there was actually the Department of Public Examiners came down and did a forensic audit with the municipal court. And they had significant findings up to and including the repayment of approximately, or the loss of approximately $29,734.60. And I took some time to read the audit and what was identified last year and what was identified this year. And what we spoke about in the meeting are some of the same things that are going on. They're not being reconciled. They're not being balanced. The municipal court doesn't have receipts for things they've submitted. We're going to be in the same position again. Right. And they've listed all those council members on there. I just don't want my name on that list when they come back. What can we do immediately to shore this up?
Well, immediately someone needs to, I know that there's been some turnover in the municipal court, so that makes it difficult, you know, when you have someone new coming in and trying to pick up where the previous person left off. However, you know, getting in there tomorrow and saying, hey, we're going to get this fixed, we're going to start reconciling this account, and everything that comes in needs to be reported to the finance office, you know, on a daily or weekly basis. Adding this procedure that goes into that would be probably one of the first things I would add to the policy and procedures manual, because it sounds like that may be an area where there's not a whole lot of set policies that they're even knowing that they should follow. So that would probably be one of the top priorities I would add into that procedures manual, and just saying, hey, this is what we got to do. And if someone's gone, or if someone leaves, or the new person comes in, don't know exactly where to pick up, instead of having to just, you know, try to figure it out on their own.
All right, we're gonna go Thomas, Benjamin, Randolph, and Michelle.
I only have two questions. You told us in the meeting that when we say matching money, you know, we was talking about like funding, like grant, like if we do, I use the example like a miracle, like in the payment, like you told us, we never get back the exact amount that we're expecting. You know, like we say a certain amount of money is supposed to be paid back, and you say you never gets it back, you know, it never be back, they never pay back it. You might come up $20 or something short.
Yeah, I think that was what they were saying is when they're getting reimbursed, maybe a percentage of what they're actually paying. So if you pay $100,000, you're only going to get reimbursed 80%. Well, the $100,000 was being recorded into the account as if it was anticipated to be received in full. And so I think that the due to, due froms has been a problem from what I know for quite a long time, and that's not entirely unusual. However, you know, there's a lot of balances in those accounts that continue to roll forward from year to year, and it's also difficult to reconcile because anytime you have a due to, you have a corresponding due from, and if one of those sides gets recorded and the other doesn't at some point during the year, then you're out of balance, and you may not know it until, you know, months later or at the end of the year when you're doing the audit. So that was one of the issues that we noted also. That has been noted in the past.
And that's what we need to know, that, you know, like a lot of us, when they say that payment due match back from another person, another company, and that's why I was saying that has a lot to do with us in our audit too, not coming up.
Right.
And also I wanted to say this too. I was reading in the book that on your recommendation that you said that there was no fraud, no anything that was illegal done in this during the audit for this year.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, we weren't auditing for fraud, so the engagement was not to come in and look for that. However, a financial statement audit, if a material fraud comes to our attention, then we would report that. So we did not have any of, you know, material fraud, but that was not the purpose of the audit either, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. You mentioned material findings. Were many or any of them at all from the magistrate's office?
Let's see. The bail bond would, well, the 2017-3 would be the bail bond, that's the magistrate's office, correct?
We had extensive talk about the magistrate's office, and I offered during that meeting when we spoke that we start from a starting point because I felt like we could not recover from it.
Right.
All of the stuff that had been going on in the past. So I offered that we start from a brand new point concerning the magistrate's office. The finance department has no direct control over that office. And so I offered that so that at some point, the finance department and the magistrate's office can merge in a way that they're both on the same page. You know, that is judicial. That's the judicial branch. So we don't have direct control of that office. But the money flow is what I'm talking about. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you want to have a starting point at some point. Like, you know, like right now, you don't reconcile. So at some point, you just have to say, okay, let bygones be bygones, for lack of a better word. We're going to start here, and this is the number that we're going to go from and start going for. So that would be the easiest. You know, I don't know if you want to pick, you know, a couple months from now or whatever, but that would give you time to be able to say, hey, this is our starting point. Do we feel pretty comfortable about where we're starting at? And let's just go forward from there. So that, you know, then whenever the policies and procedures are in place, that the reporting is, you know, regular to the finance department, that, you know, they will be caught sooner than, you know, a year down the road where you can't, it takes a lot longer to reconcile and determine why it's out if it's, you know, not done on a regular basis. So.
You want to talk about the overall shape of the city, but before I get to that, you, during the meeting, the last meeting, you said that sometimes the way things are reported, it could appear, like Councilwoman Thomas said, that it's something that it is not, only because it's recorded in one way and not the other way. We had a transfer of $1.5 million that was recorded in a manner. Can you tell us whether it was recorded correctly or not? Do you remember the transfer, the $1.5 million city transfer?
I'm not remembering the 1.5 transfer that you're referring to.
It was this year, this last year.
Was it after 1917?
So you may not see, okay, so yeah, so speaking of the books that you have not seen, we have cut tremendously. Glad y'all reminded me of that. We cut tremendously in this new budget, and we were able to, and I know you have not seen the books on that yet concerning that. Tell me about the overall shape of the city now, as you see it, and I know you don't see the new books right now, but as you see it.
As I was saying before, you know, you've seen the decline in revenues and expenses that have pretty much either stayed the same or not really declined to the extent that revenues have. And it's been kind of a consistent trend, especially when you look at the fund balance. That to me is kind of an indicator of, you know, we have excessive expenditures over revenues on a consistent basis since 2014. And then kind of go back to that, we look at the operating days. You know, you want to have around 90 days would be recommended. You want more than that, ideally, but 90 days is a good target to have. But we're down to 26 days now. And that's because we've seen a continual, you know, operating deficit for the past several years. That's just kind of reducing the financial condition.
There were also some procedures and processes that you said that there are quick fixes and that you could help the finance department fix quickly because it was simple enough to do that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the number one thing I think that we could help with is to go over the audit adjustments. You know, there was 50-something adjustments. If we could go over with the finance department and say, hey, here's the reason these adjustments were made, here's what we were doing. We need to set up new accounts in a certain way so they can be used to be posted correctly the first time, so that when the audit time comes, you're not having to correct it. It's done right the first time, and then you can save tremendous amounts of time and headache and all that for the audit period. So
So you can create line items for different items that we have not created yet.
right, there would be some additional accounts that could be added, and then just simply going over the audit adjustments and saying, hey, you know, instead of initially recording this expenditure, for example, if it's a capital lease payment, instead of initially recording it to an equipment purchase account, which is similar, but it's actually slightly different from the financial statement standpoint, because when you have a lease, you're really kind of paying down, paying it for 5 years, so you kind of have a loan of sorts. And so really that's a different type of account that needs to be set up. And if it's set up correctly to begin with, and when the invoice comes in, the payable knows, hey, this is the account I need to start charging going forward, you go the whole year and it's actually being posted to the correct account instead of needing to be adjusted at the end of the year.
All right, Randolph and LaShore.
Yeah, one question to you. Is the city broke?
Can't give a financial condition, but like I said, it's not broke.
Okay, because see, we have a lot of council people up there saying we broke, we don't have no money.
Well,
I just want to ask you, did you see any money?
Well, we audited, but this is a year ago. I gotta remember that.
Yeah.
So
What year ago did you see any money?
Yeah, see money. Yeah. Well, there's obviously money to be audited. So
Thank you. That's all. That's all. I'm not. It's not a trick question, but we got people that are saying we broke, we earned, we ain't got nothing. Later employees, all the stuff like that.
I don't know what councilwoman he's referring to, but I never said the city was broke. I've always said and I maintain the city needs new revenues. And I think you clarified that tonight, and you made it clear the city do needs new revenue. You may mention 50 adjustments, and I think you answered that question. I think my colleague asked that question. Is that normal?
And that's not.
Okay. The audit exceptions and audit adjustments, are they one and the same?
Yeah, that would be, well, audit adjustments would be where we come in and we say we're auditing an account balance, and then we find out based on our audit procedures that it needs to be a different balance. So we would then propose an audit adjustment to the city and say, hey, this is the adjustment that we propose in order to correct it to the correct balance. But then an audit exception would be more at the end of the audit, you know, we have our audit findings. And so, yes, an audit adjustment would, depending on the dollar amount of an audit adjustment, it could lead to an audit finding if it was a significant adjustment. Now, if it's if it's just a very small adjustment and management wants to just post it, then that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, an audit finding because it's not significant to the audit or it's not material. But if it is material, it goes to the audit finding.
And I'm glad our citizens are here tonight so they can hear from our auditors, which I've always maintained ever since I've been on this council. Because I took the time and looked at the revenues of the city 2 years ago. And what you're telling me, I'm not surprised, I already knew, is that our expenditures continue to exceed our revenues. And if we continue going down this rabbit hole, we're going to be in a much different problem we're in now. The other thing is, did you ever get a chance, well, before I ask that question, you mentioned the St. James. Would you go on record that the general fund took a hit trying to maintain that St. James? Because the St. James was not bringing in revenues that would sustain itself.
Right. So I don't remember the exact dollar amount for the year, but the majority of the expenses to my recollection were basically just keeping the lights on, keeping the AC, you know, so that it just didn't get into a worse condition than it was, which was very smart, you know, from a long-term standpoint, because if you just cut it off completely, you know, it would start to deteriorate very rapidly.
And there was a special account set up for the St. James. It was being carried. It was being carried by the general fund.
Right.
Which we all know our general fund is always, well, not always, but we're experiencing a cash.
So since there's nobody staying there weren't any revenues coming in to offset the operating expenses. Whether, you know, obviously the operating expenses were a lot lower because there weren't any employees, weren't a lot of, you know, maintenance and cleaning fees and stuff like that. It was just basically utilities that were the majority of the expenses, which you would have anyway. But like I said, there was no revenues coming in, so it's basically just sitting there ready to be sold.
That was one of the best decisions this mayor's made, is to close those doors and cut the bleeding and cut the hemorrhaging. My final question, and of course I don't interrupt my colleagues when they have the floor, and I demand that the respect of my colleagues, but I have to.
Councilwoman Thomas, don't interrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman
Oh, I'm
Shaw.
sorry, with bills.
Our assets, have you had a chance to look at our assets of the city?
Yeah, they were part of the audit, yeah. The assets would be, anything that, all the assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses of the city are included in our audit scope. Now, we may not look at every single asset of the city because some of them may not be material, may not be significant to the audit.
So there was no inventory control that you had an opportunity to review our assets? There was no inventory control list that will dictate what our assets are, that you had an opportunity to review. So that's one of our problems, and I think Ms. Wade has mentioned that we do need to have ways and means to determine what our assets are.
And then when you say assets, do you mean your property?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I don't think you had an opportunity to have.
We have a listing of those, but you know, one of the policies and procedures that would be recommended would be to do at least an annual inventory of the assets for each department. Say, hey, here's how many vehicles we have, you know, and this one got wrecked, and so now it's, you know, not even on hand anymore. So that, you know, that's the kind of thing where it could be, it's not reported back to the finance office. They could be showing that truck whenever it was, you know, been gone for several years. So that's a good point, though.
In your experience, sir, what would be the norm for adjustments? 10, 20?
Well, the normal, you would want 0. But a lot of times that's not the case. You know, a lot of times you're going to have at least a couple. So I would say I would shoot for 0 and maybe hope end up less than 5 would be a good goal.
So would you say 50 is just out of the...
It's unusual.
Would you say 50 is unacceptable?
Well, it's a problem that needs to be addressed, absolutely. Yeah. Which I think that's not something that can't be addressed.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Thomas right after my remarks.
Okay.
So there were 50. And
somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and you talked about accruals at the meeting. You talked about, again, I'm going to go back to the things that you said were fixable. And I wish you had time to name these 50 off so that we can see what they are. But people will get their books from the mayor whenever he decides to give them their copy. But you talked about accruals at the meeting the last time as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so part of our procedures over auditing of accounts payable, which is expenditures that the city has incurred but they have not paid yet. So an invoice comes in, let's say, you know, somebody did some road work or something like that, and you know, it was done during the months of August and September. Well, the city, as of the end of the year, owes that money to them because they've received the benefit of the work being done. So, you know, the city hasn't paid it yet, so that's going to be a liability of the city. There were several adjustments related to invoices that were not reflected as accounts payable at the time that we were doing our audit. So those were included in our audit adjustments at the end of the year to put that back, because essentially what that means is that if it's not accrued into 17, it's being pushed into 18 as an expenditure, when really it's not an expenditure of 18 because it's an expenditure of 17. So those accruals were made as part of the audit adjustments.
Yeah, and we need to pull those invoices and find out what's on those invoices, the dates of those invoices, and why we have those invoices, why certain things are on those invoices, so we can get to the heart of the matter. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Thomas.
Yes, sir. I know that you said during the time when the St. James was closed, due to, I'm sorry, Councilman Short, but when you said bills, I noticed it in our book. During the time of the year that the doors, when the mayor came in and he closed those doors at the St. James, the general fund, the money that was in the general fund that we were paying those bills, those utility bills to keep, even though the doors were closed, but our money was coming out of our general fund. And in that period, the St. James has been closed how long?
Too long.
No, I'm talking about a year. And we carried that paying that utility bills when we should have turned the lights off and everything because you closed it. But the mayor took the responsibility as a day-to-day operation to keep paying this money out of the general fund, which that we could have used, this money could have been used to pay these people's salary, which are business not open. And we kept paying the utility bills and paying for security. We paid good money. We paid for security over there. When nothing was going on, we paid for the security, we paid the utility bills. We paid, that was fun, that was money that we could have used to keep our workers working. Thank you.
Two questions. Are you allowed to say how much the total audit was?
I don't have the actual number. I know that it was higher than we anticipated, but I can assure you we wrote off, meaning we incurred much more expenses than we actually billed for. I could give you those figures, but I don't necessarily have them. We anticipated originally the audit to be around $95,000 without the single audit, so maybe around $100,000. It may have been around 140-ish, around that range when it was all said and done. It may have been a little bit higher than that. I don't have the number, like I said, in front of me. But the actual costs that we wrote off were significantly higher than that. And we did that just basically out of good faith of, long-term relationship with the city. And we're here to help the city. We're not here to take advantage of the city. So we want to, be fair also in that regard. So
my second question was the increase from what you anticipated to the actual expenditure. Was that have anything to do with the number of findings we had, or the
yeah, it had to do with the number of findings and kind of the difficulties that we talked about previously. Just the additional time that was necessary in order to get everything corrected, and then just that we had to stop and come back and stop and come back multiple times, and you just lose efficiency in that regard. Instead of coming here and just kind of getting it done, all at once, essentially.
You said that once Ms. Wade got back into office, she was able immediately and efficiently to provide you with the information that you requested, so things began to roll appropriately once she was back in her position. Is that correct? Is that an assessment that
she was very helpful, and because we had gotten to the point where we weren't able to find the information, and she was very diligent in getting that information to us.
Okay.
I want to thank you for the clarity on your findings and the difficulty that you experienced while Ms. Wade was out. It cost you more time. It cost us more money, right? It cost you more time because you couldn't find anything. You didn't even know where to look. You didn't know who to ask because you're new. And we don't expect you to know that. The other team had worked with the city of Selma forever. Perhaps they would have known where to go, whatever. But finally, she came back for a little while, and you started moving. Things started moving when Ms. Wade got back in the office.
She came back kind of near the end of our wrap-up procedure, so at that point, we had a lot of things that, we had a lot of difficulty tracking down. So that was the thing that she was helping us with, for sure.
Thank you.
Guess Ms. Wade put on her superwoman cape and made things happen. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you for spending so much time. Thank you, sir. Again.
Now, council members, we need to go into executive session for about 20 minutes to discuss legal matters. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to move into executive session for about 20 minutes. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Okay. We will resume in about 20 minutes.
Give me Ms. Ward.
I couldn't read your lips. I'm not gonna find this man. I thought you said they're gonna drive.
Three people make an estimate. Hey, I meant to talk to your man before you left. Right.
Hey man, I'm alright. Been crazy. Yeah, I got up pretty much everything that needed. They're hell bent on getting numbers, and I was telling her that they were asking me about numbers, and Dennis was asking me how can I get financial records in the city. I was like, when the council does. He was like, yeah. And he said he won't do that. I said yeah. And then he called Bowline. Him and Bowline talked for a long time today. And Bowline told him, yeah. He was talking about, he gave him some idea and stuff, but he was here that day when the payroll came up. He sat by the mayor, and he said, boy, was he tense. Yeah, Dennis sat by the mayor. He said he didn't say a word to him. He just sat there and knew he was on. Yeah. He said, boy, he's worked on. Wow. No. Yeah. He just said, hey, Dario. He just shook your hand and sat down by him. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've never, that's the first time I heard that. I'll ask Louis if he'll tell me off the record. I'll have it. I'm thinking that fool probably asked for millions. I know how crazy he is. He was telling me they said he couldn't name his amount. Yeah. That's what I somebody I said one time, I smell a rat. She said too.
Just to listen to
You had a lot of time. Yeah. You
Yes.
Councilman Bowling, Councilwoman Youngblood, Councilwoman Jackson, Councilwoman Benjamin,
Yes.
Councilman Randolph,
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw, Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson. Okay.
Okay. We do have a quorum. Well, we have, okay. All right. Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the service to move forward?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion made by me, second, Councilman Youngblood, Councilman Randolph, and Councilman LaShaw, and Councilman Thomas. All right. Roll call.
President Bowie,
Yes.
Councilman Bowling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson, Councilwoman Benjamin, Councilman Randolph,
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
All right, we have a motion, passed unanimously. The motion was to accept service to move forward.
He is, moving forward.
Come on. That was recorded.
Come on, short timer, we can, come on in, short timer. He's almost free of these, processes.
We're gonna turn it on now. Okay, let's go to the business.
I'd like to cast my vote.
Certainly, so would I, yes and yes.
Mr. President.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Okay. Well, I
To
guess the time,
reconvene and for the services.
I guess the turn it on is moving forward, so we're gonna move forward. Councilman Randolph, your business item. We'll just come back to, turn it on.
Can't keep getting small like this, guys.
Employee benefits, attorney, Councilman Randolph.
Yes, I put down the agenda, for 2 reasons. All right, the employees that, have been laid off, I'd like to, see can the council allow them to do, 2 weeks of their vacation. The ones that got vacation, allow them to cash in 2 weeks of vacation. If we could, and also, I like to, continue to pay, their, health insurance, which was, roughly,
20,000.
Yeah, right at, yeah, 19, almost 20, but, yeah, it's almost 20,000 a month, but it's like 19 and some change.
Yeah. All right, you have a motion on the floor?
Well, can I make it in 2 motions?
You gonna separate?
Gonna separate?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like to make a motion that we, allow the employees that got, vacation time to, cash in, 80 hours, that's the city, it's in the handbook. So they can get 80 hours. And also, the ones that, got over 80 hours, I want them to be able to keep them excess hours that they have, you know, to use at a later date when they come back to work. Because right now, the city said we only give 80 hours. So I hate for them to say, okay, since we've been laid off, now y'all come back to work, your 360 hours you have, it don't even exist.
So it's also too, if I'm not mistaken, it's mandated in our personnel manual too, with the 8 hours.
Yeah, so.
Second, Mr. President.
Well, the motion on the floor by Councilman Randolph, second, Councilwoman Benjamin. Discussion. Councilman, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Jackson.
Yes, I need to, I want to ask the attorney, question. I just gave my manual up. And so I want to, if you all could clarify exactly what that states, and how long are you allowed to hold those hours? You say that any hours that are over 80 hours, you want to hold until they come back. How long are you allowed to hold those hours? Do we have any policies for that?
Well, I said
allow them to hold out because they won't strong. That's some stupidity that the mayor did that laid them off from the get-go, which he shouldn't have laid them off. So I don't want to penalize them, make them lose their overtime, their vacation time because of something the mayor did.
And I understand that. I just want to make sure we're not setting a new precedent, that we're actually following our procedures, policies and procedures, and that's why I asked if I hadn't given up my manual.
And that's why I asked about what's it mandated in our personnel manual.
Yeah, it said 8 hours in the personnel manual.
Council.
I think those motions need to be separate and apart.
Yeah, well, that's what he's doing.
And Mr. President, I'm gonna vote yes on the money, provided the funds is there. We got to make sure we'll be voting on things and money's not there, it's a useless vote. So, false hope. False hope. And I am tired of giving employees false hope. So I stand by the employees, for them having every benefit that we can afford, as long as the money is there.
All right, roll call. Yes, pending the funds are available.
I think you still had discussion on the floor, Mr. President.
Cool.
Ms. Jackson.
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Councilwoman Jackson.
That's okay. I don't vote on pending things, so I would like to see, because I want to vote for the employees their 80 hours. If that our employee handbook states that, then we're obligated. I feel we're obligated to do that. However, I would like to see if we could actually have another motion that we discuss first, so we can get the documentation that we need to determine how much it's going to be, and state exactly when this needs to be paid. It may not be paid tomorrow, because if we make this vote tonight and he decides that the money is not there for 3 years, he's not going to pay it, because the motion is pending that the money is there. So
Motion's not pending. He said pending.
My motion's
His
not
motion's not pending.
not pending.
So you're making a motion, and if he comes back and say, we don't have it to pay, and we're not going to pay, we're making the same.
We do have it.
Right, and so all I'm asking is that we determine that the money is actually there by having to go to get a copy of the documentation. I fully support it. I'm just saying, let's make sure that the money is in place so he can.
I'm trying to keep up from getting sued by the labor law, because that money
That's gonna cost more.
that money is due to the employees. It's due to them. We cannot.
They earn it.
false out because the mayor did.
That's all.
And I mean, the money's due, so this vote is not necessary because it's mandated. But we're having a vote, and if we're going to have a vote, at least state that we have determined that there are X amount of dollars in the account, and these funds are to be expended in this manner because we voted on motion to. And that's all.
Time frame and everything.
Yes, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
It's just to make sure that we have the money there. If maybe we need to table it and make sure that we get the funds.
No, we ain't gonna table nothing.
But that's fine. You don't have to table it, but if we don't know that the funds are there, we can't tell him, we have the funds available in this account and this is how we want them expended. But we can just have a vote.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, to a certain extent, she's right, voting it just to do it, even though it's lawful, which doesn't seem to be important at all to this mayor in a lot of cases. I think it's a good idea, again, it's a show of solidarity and support for the employees, but again, if the question is asked, the money's there or not, and he says, well, the money's not there, then we have no way of actually getting that money to the employees in a timely fashion to ensure it meets their needs, which leaves them right where they are. And that's not the kind of thing I want to do, but I am in 100% support of the employees as well. It'd be nice to know our financial situation, period. But again, not knowing that information, I'll throw the vote. I mean, I'll do the vote. No problem.
Okay. I think we already have a motion on the floor. Councilman Randolph made the motion. Councilman Benjamin seconded the motion. And I think we just need to move forward.
Yeah.
Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes, depending upon availability of funds.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
All right, the motion passed.
Okay.
Councilman Randolph.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to make a motion that we continue to pay our employees health insurance that been laid off.
I second.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay. I think, you know, after 30 days, the health insurance just lapse, you know, after 30 days.
After 30 days. Well, cause we got too many employees that, like myself, I'm a diabetic, I'm on insulin, they can't afford to go buy their medicine. You know, some of them wife, high blood pressure pills, some people got sickle cell, you know, and they can't afford it, especially the people that are making $8 an hour, they can't afford to get their unemployment check and pay for their insurance. If we don't do that, that means their insurance is gonna lapse. It's gonna lapse. And I just won't sit here and not try to help the employees out.
Do we know if we can do that? I mean, I know that a lot of times an employee has to work so many hours to be able to qualify for that.
It's more of an incentive package, usually when you offer that, I think it's a certain amount of hours. Other dynamics.
If it's lawful, I just don't know the lawful nature of it or not. Because I've seen this play out in other businesses I've worked with, I didn't know. If the municipality is the same or different than a general business would be.
Yeah. Go to Councilman Shaw.
Why don't we get Ms. Williams to call
Williams, yeah.
and find out what our options are, so find out if this is option to do this. And then have her to come back and give us some feedback. And at the same time, let the finance department and all the mayor and the council is leaning toward extending these benefits to our employees. And based on the report that's coming back from Ms. Williams and the finance department. So
by that time, you talking about waiting another 2 weeks?
Well,
could we vote on it?
Well, we can always have a special call when we get invested. I
Also,
think our employees deserve a quick, fast action on this initiative. And if necessary, Mr. President, have Ms. Williams go to Blue Cross and research the option. Find out from the
matter of fact, it may be best if we have Ms. Williams and someone from Blue Cross Blue Shield to come before the council.
So can we have a special
We can have a special call. We can do that.
I'm
talking about this week now. I'm talking about next week.
How are we gonna get her to the meeting?
That's what I'm saying. Because the mayor ain't gonna let nobody come to the meeting.
Do it during the working hours.
How is she coming to me? How we gonna get her to me?
We asked Mayor about the
We just, I mean, they should know Blue Cross. I mean, we just.
Can we get a representative?
We can get them, yeah.
Independently of.
Because they know how many people we serve and all the logistical things that, you know, that's involved with insurance.
Mr. President, tonight's Tuesday. I would hope that we can get this done by Friday. We have a special call meeting by Friday. Contact Blue Cross tomorrow, let them know that they will allow a representative to come and share with what our options are as it relates to our employees.
Okay.
Well, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they can come and say what they want to say, but it's our money. They don't care. It's our money, so what we gotta listen, let somebody tell us what to do with our own finances.
Well, they talking about the logistical things.
Right.
I mean, the law, job work. I mean,
Okay, put it like this. All right, I work for FedEx. Down in Florida, people that got affected by the hurricane, FedEx kept paying their insurance without them having to pay any money because they weren't working. So FedEx kept continuing their insurance while they was laid off.
FedEx
is a private company. FedEx is a private company.
And I checked.
And they were affected by natural disaster. They weren't laid off. We just want to make sure legally.
And the city of Panama City, they did the same thing. They continue to pay for their employee insurance while they are displaced.
Displaced. They laid off.
Yeah. Also, too, keep in mind when you deal with this insurance.
All right.
Okay. Also, too, you're looking at the insurance claim that, you know, our employees going back to the doctor, and our insurance claim has gone up over the years. So I think it would be to our advantage if we would have someone from Blue Cross and Blue Shield here to address the question.
Mr. President, what are we talking about doing here?
Have a good conversation.
What day are we talking?
Friday.
Okay, so I have a dancing family. I know we like to come up with special call meetings and, I would like to, one, cast my vote, for health insurance for the employees. I'd like to be present at the meeting. So I'm preparing for a funeral. We have several things to do on Friday. Could y'all change the day of the week, please?
All we need is 5 members, Mr. President. All we need is 5 members to attend this special call meeting. And I know people have particular circumstances where they can't be here. Let's move forward with this initiative, Mr. President. Our employees deserve our immediate attention.
Well, then let's make a motion tonight and vote. We're here now.
That would be irresponsible.
We're here now.
That would be
Okay,
irresponsible.
Councilman Randolph, this is not going to phone service.
Yeah, I think it's, that's why I was just leaving it alone, but what I would like to do is, cut off all phones, you know, show good faith to our employees, that we trying to come up with ways to save money. Cut off all cell phones besides public safety. That means, no one is to have phones in the city besides public safety. That's the police department, the fire department.
Second.
Yeah.
In the follow discussion, Councilman.
Go ahead.
The positions that reach with, like the, I don't know if the building inspector still has a city cell phone or not, if the number was changed or not, does anybody know?
Yeah, they still, all of them got cell phone, they changed the number so county people couldn't call them.
I'm with you on that. I don't want to impede the ability for those who may have that number that don't share it with us to get in touch with, the building inspector was my primary concern, because that's one of those people that have to be on site to look at stuff in a timely fashion, so that'd be the only concern I had regarding that motion.
I want the building inspector phone cut off too.
I don't want to hamper people doing business in the city of Selma. We've done enough of that over the past 18, 20 years, and I know how important it is to get something moving quickly. So I'm all for it, other than that one phone, just to make sure he can communicate with those contractors that are out there trying to make a living.
Are we saying he works after hours, the building inspector?
No, I'm just saying his cell phone probably is a primary mode of communication for him if he's out in the field. Right, because he's in the field all the time doing inspections. That's why I'm concerned. If he was just at his office all day, I wouldn't care. You know, I'm just trying to look at the operation of the city to incur. We don't create another problem by trying to do something to save money, to your point. I agree with that. I just don't want to impede anybody's ability to get a hold of our building inspector to come look at work in a timely fashion so they can move on to the next
So the
stage.
building inspector needs his phone, Councilman, will you adjust your motion so that we can move on?
If that's acceptable to you, Councilman? No?
Well, we trying to save money, you know, the building inspector. He important, but I can say the same thing for public works, Steve Henry.
Yeah, it's good to be able to get on the phone if you can get him on the phone.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying, listen, yeah. Because I'm just.
But their email's still working no matter what their phone number is.
Okay, I tell you what, let's go to points. Councilman, you have a,
I said cut off all phones.
You have a second, Councilman Benjamin? I think, like I said, they have emails, let's move forward. Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
I'll pass.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman Shore?
I'm not gonna vote to shut this city down simply because the mayor cut your cell phone off. We should not impede this mayor from running this city. If what you guys have done, what you're doing, this is just spite. This mayor, whatever the reason, I don't know, we need to ask him why you cut your cell phones off. But when you're talking about cutting all the cell phones off of this city, then you're transgressing upon the day's operation. Y'all gotta remember, we only have 2 days a week.
We got personal phones.
That's right, so use your personal phones.
All right then, so they use them too.
My vote is no. My vote is no.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yeah.
What's the count?
You have 5 affirmative, 1 no, 1 pass, and 1 abstention.
Okay, all right. Councilman Randolph, anything else? That's it.
We need to, with the cell phone, we need to find I guess in the IT office, we need to send a memo, but they ignore our memos anyway. But I hate to vote on something and it don't have no teeth in it, you know. So I like Ms. Curtis, because she's the one that's turned them off, because the mayor name not even on the phone. Who did?
Sabrina Simmons.
How Sabrina get cut off a phone? She's a secretary.
Come on, Ms. Sam. I mean, Councilman Ratcliffe.
How she?
Councilman.
Okay. But anyway, I'm gonna be quiet. I'll be quiet. But like I said, I don't want to. If we pass this tonight and tomorrow, just like he cut our phone off in one day, their phone gets cut off in one day. So no, I don't want to let this make her own, you know.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just don't believe any city employees have any city phones anyway, because every one of them I've tried to call for anything, they don't have any. You know, I've tried to call the public works person, I've tried to call the building person, I've tried to call the whatever Mr. Van Diver is. I've tried to call, you know, trying to get some things, because we have. You know, I have another, like the Oak Street debacle, I have another road that very same thing is fixing to happen to you here. You heard it here first, folks. And I have that same thing, just like I had over on Oak Street. I have a group of requests in there going years back. Please follow up, please follow up, please follow up, pictures and everything. Nope. Going to swallow up somebody's car, a car full of kids one day in a soccer mom in the street in the Olympic-sized swimming pool hole. But I can't get a hold of anybody to say. So I just assume that nobody even has city cell phones anymore because their numbers aren't.
We just sit on a small screen.
You have to go out to public work if you want to see Stephen Henderson in the morning. He changed his phone number. What I do is I drive out there in the morning, catch Steve Henry when he's coming in the door, and talk to him and tell him what I need to get done. It's bad to say that, but that is how you have to get connected.
Okay, Councilwoman Thomas, baseline 3 and 4.
Okay, I want to, President Bowie.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to put item 3 to a vote, because you know why? It's a problem with getting the information. I have talked, and you know, we tried, I work with anybody, but we have tried for the last week that our executive secretary that the mayor has in the office took the information and agreed to give me the feedback, the information back on this. And it seems like that, you know, all of our secretaries are laid off. We don't have, well, the council, city council secretary, our department is really shot down because we have no communication. We have to do our own. And we do try to do what we need to do. But right now, we are paying an executive secretary down there in the mayor's office. I'm not calling her chief of staff because it's not. We abolished that position. And on there it said executive secretary. Even the citizen goes to this office down. We have doorbells in both places. I'm very concerned what our city hall is turning into. We go down there, you got doorbells on the right side ringing, you got doorbells on the left side. You're putting these code locks on doors, and when you go there, you got an executive secretary that's never in her seat. When you go to that door, you got to backwards and forwards and beat on the door, and they still don't come. So my thing is this here, that I want to put this to a vote, because it is a problem with getting information with something that we've been dragging be almost a year, and we can't find out. And I'm not putting our city clerk on the spot. I talked to her, and I even talked to our attorney Nunn. I talked to him too. When we have, I need to ask the fire chief too, have we got the report back from for the Dallas Academy. This will be a year. And I'm quite sure the insurance and somebody done paid off. And I've been doing my little research, so I would like to put this motion on the floor that we immediately request that they go ahead on and take care of this. Let these people know what they need to do in order for them to start on this project, to go in there and fix this. Because it is dragging. It seems like someone don't want it to happen. And I would like to put, as the council person and all of us on here, this is something that need to be taken care of.
What is your question?
Have we talked with the fire marshal?
No, this is why I need to, well, he was here, because I wanted to ask him, could he check something out about the codes and violations, and when the last time that they inspected City Hall with all these doors going up and locks on the doors, and the council come in and you got the doorbells and you can't get out the other door, and I just want them to, I need the chief to come in and do see if we in any violation of.
Can we have him, when you come in, have him in writing, put him in writing for us before we move forward with it? Because I'm quite sure it's some type of violation.
Well, can you, as the president of the city council, can you get more information from me so that we can do some kind of business, get some kind of business?
Come out with the locks and doors and everything?
The locks and doors, and also with the Dallas County Academy, because it's almost a year. And
It's been a year.
okay, well, I'm sorry, we're over a year. Well, I've been here almost 2, I know I've been hitting it off and on. And I'm quite sure that the insurance or somebody done paid, let's get a fire report to see, let's do some investigating, follow up on stuff. We need to know. So we can see if they're gonna fix it or what they need to do so we can move forward with this.
Who's our sheriff's agent? Is it Peak Insurance?
Yes.
You can just check Mr. Peak on that.
And then another thing, can you request for Miss Cherry Davis, she's over the buildings. Could you tell her that Mr. Sean Van Dyke is not the person to get the estimate on what needs to be fixed or repaired? We have somebody that keeps wearing too many hats. We gotta get our business and we need to do what we need to do as council.
Councilwoman Benjamin.
So the last time we talked about the insurance check, we got a speech from the floor from Mr. Van Dyke concerning the insurance check. And so we're now checking on the insurance check again and to see if everything has been paid. So who are we going to ask this time to get an answer?
I'm going to the source, Jerry, Mr. Peak.
Okay, you will go to the source and bring us back information on whether insurance has been paid and we can move on. Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
My next on the list is about the city public building. I would like to know this too. I've been doing a little. With the city buildings, and Miss Terry Davis is over the city buildings, I want to know where did this money come from to somebody. I want to know if we didn't have money, she didn't have money, who's paying for all of these doors and locks being put up? Where's this money coming from? Out of what? We need to know. This is now, President Bowie, this is serious business. There is no communication with this council. Nobody came before this council. And no one said that they were going to be changing, put new doors up, put new codes in, nobody know but them. And money is being spent because you have to pay the labor who comes in to do it or whoever. So I want to know what fund and account did this money come out of? If it didn't come out of IT, where did it come from? So we need to, that's a question we need to know. Who's spending money, where it's coming from? What account is it coming out of?
Especially this late in the fiscal year, we're running out of money, and yet We're spending all kinds of money to redo a building. No, when it started. When it started, it was, you know, a reaction to the comments made in the budget process about money not being allocated. And if you look at the budget performance after that point, it was a quick run to spend what was in that line item to make it look like somebody's doing what they're supposed to be doing on these buildings. I'm telling you, these building department needs to go away. That money needs to be saved. I will say that till the day I get out of this office.
Can I finish my other? Also, I have something else I've been working on and looking at too. You know, we get, what is it 84,000? Ms. Davis have $84,000 in there to do for building repair of 20.
Not anymore.
Okay, well, at the last, the following year, not for this year, 2019. 2018, Mrs. Davis had like $84,000 in there for building repair. And with some of these buildings that the POs and stuff that claim that they're supposed to be done, we need to have some of those pulled and check out some of the work that has been done. We really do. Because I thought if you spend over $5,000, you're supposed to come before the council. You're supposed to come before the council and let us know how the money is spent. And I think right now, we need to start managing. When they want something, we need to know that this is going on the building. So right now, we at a standstill where some things need to be done, like in the front of City Hall, right here when we walk in. They don't spend the money, we got a big old hole up there. So now I'm gonna see who's gonna come and ask for this building to be fixed.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Well, Councilwoman, if you recall at the work session, I stated to you out of those 4,000 pages of documents that we received, that I was going to go through them again and point out some things with building repairs that have been done, because as you asserted and we've seen, to the natural eye, it doesn't appear that much is getting done. However, we have a slew, a lot of building repairs. Now, I can't tell you what buildings are being repaired, because the only description that we have in our detailed general ledger and our purchase order report is repairs and or building repairs. And so I can't specifically tell you, but I can tell you like PO number 2018-1138 for $13,175. I don't recall voting for that. It is over $5,000. PO 2018-1036, $5,194. Another amount that I don't recall voting on, and we have several for $15,000, $19,000. I just don't recall voting on these items, and I'm not going to tell you the ones that are $4,200 or $3,800. And please don't gasp like I did when I realized that we paid $2,300 by description to change an air filter. I want that job.
$2,300 to change the air filter.
Was that a company that has a business license here in town, Ms. Jackson?
Based on the information that I've been able to ascertain, because we were provided the license activity report.
Yes, ma'am.
So I put in the, stop.
Sorry.
That's called leading in the legal system.
Well, we're not legal system, we're
But the information that I've been able to review, I put their name in every way. I've tried to put their full name, put half their name in search to determine if they have a business license, and currently I haven't been able to find any. And Mr. President, I would like to actually suggest that we make a series of financial meetings, maybe 1 or 2 a week, to go over these 4,000 documents, and that we take a look at them. I've highlighted a lot of them, and I told the councilwoman that I would go through them, and so I tried not to bother her this weekend because she was the mother of the bride, but I did take a lot of the time to go through these items, and they are alarming. And there are a lot of items that are not associated with your buildings, but they're purchases of like $5,500, and then there may be a purchase in 3 weeks of $1,900 to the same company, and a purchase at 2 days from there of another $1,700. And so I think this is the way that our funding has been dwindled. I can't tell you that there was anything erroneous done. I can tell you that we do not put in great descriptions, because I want to believe that $2,300 was not to change an air filter. And I want to believe that the nearly $1,800 was not done to change a thermostat to one digital thermostat. I want to believe that we did not pay $1,800 to change one digital thermostat by one group, and then we have another group that came in a couple of days later and said they changed several thermostats for $725. So I don't want to believe that we're doing those type of things. I want to believe that our descriptions are not the best, and so we don't actually have a idea of what was done with the PO. But until we get the actual invoice, which we asked for, the invoices for the last 3 months, and we got the purchase order report and detail ledger report and other items for the last 2 years, but I'm diligently trying to go through those things.
Councilwoman.
And this is why I say, President Bowie, we're getting ready to start in our 2019. This is where each council member sitting up here, we're gonna have to be more monitored with our departments here, how they using the city funds, because we were, for the last 2 years, we were practically, you could say, blindsided. They spent a lot of money, over $288,000 in PO. And we did not know none of these things that they saying they spent this money on. We didn't even see the PO. And this is why that when it comes to taking care of the buildings and the fund is like Councilwoman Benjamin said, now you have to come before the council to get this done. We see a lot of things, and then I want to say this too, President Boyd, with the list that Councilwoman Benjamin read to us with the prices going up on the buildings. She read at the council meeting, at the work session.
We would like to have that.
Yes, and I thought that, don't we, who makes that, who takes those?
That's the council.
Okay, that's why I was wondering why was these prices, and you can't charge people fair for if the building's not up to the standard, what he's going up to.
What he'd like to go up to.
Yes. Okay.
All right, Councilwoman Benjamin, then you can start on your items, Councilwoman.
You know, forever I've been saying pull the invoices, pull the invoices. So I'm saying it again, since the fire is burning and everyone saying it again, pull the invoices. Not long ago we voted to get the keys to every single building because I brought in my final report from public buildings. We voted to get the keys to every building except public safety and City Hall. Mr. President, have those keys been turned in, or do we need to change the lock so that council has a key to these buildings and we can take care of these buildings and we can go inside these buildings to find out what's going on? Because we are responsible for these buildings. I brought that motion up, Mr. President. Have the keys been submitted to the council? Councilwoman Jackson brought up a lot of invoices and POs and forever I've been saying pull them so we can look at them. I also want to know who signed them. Is there a consistent signature of a person or people who signs these POs when they go around? Are the dates on these POs correct? Do they match with the services? I want to know, I want to see the original POs when they came in, because when you pay $10,000 for a leak, a possible leak at Recreation, $10,000 for a leak that's not even a run, it's like a dot, like a magnifying glass kind of thing, and you pay $10,000 for it. I want to know who signed for it, and how did y'all as a council vote for that without me? I'd like to be in on this type of stuff.
It's just a leak that they left the water running when it was cold.
Somebody forgot.
Somebody
just forgot. You know, there's no check person, so I wanna see original documents and all that good stuff.
Okay. All right. Councilwoman Benjamin, your items.
Then we're on items. So we have a Ward 4 ditch project that's going on. Phase 1 is done. I'm gonna go ahead and start on phase 2 because I don't think anyone is coming to my rescue in Ward 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and push through a legitimate purchase order request for ditch repair in Ward 4, and it will be paid, as it has already been verified through Orleans. It can be paid through Orleans. So I will push this legitimate purchase order request through the system so that our contractor can get to moving on the project and can be paid. I have to do phase 2 because when we started, we found out there was so much has been not maintained. And I know it's across the boards. So much has not been maintained where our ditches are concerned. They've been clogged, they've been overgrown, and even the ditches that I just did in this first project. We did quite a few ditches in this first project that ended about a week or 2 ago. They look well manicured now. But I don't know what the maintenance plan is going to be for these ditches now that I've paid to have them done. Maintenance is very important. Once you do, if the work was massive, and I have a whole lot more work to do, the work was massive because no one came to take care of the small jobs. The jobs became huge jobs. And so hopefully there's a maintenance plan. God knows I don't know how we're gonna get a copy of the maintenance plan and who's gonna tell us what that plan is. I have no clue. Number 6, I will, would you carry that over for me, Mr. President? Sure. To the next meeting. The 10th annual State of the Water Fair for Ward 4 is December 17th. Same place, same time. And they're not telling you the place because I don't want anybody to lock doors. You all can't get in. But it's the same place, the same time that we always have our State of the Water Fair and the State of the Water Address. For the 10th time, we will tell you the state of Ward 4. Concerning the city layoffs, Mr. President, so I don't know what you all talked about at work session because I was at a legitimate training with documentation that I submitted last year and pre-registered last year. Paid for, and thank God for that $300 ticket I found round trip to work to do that. But I don't know what y'all talk about on at work session concerning the city layoff. What is the word about employees coming back to work? So much of this is manufactured. We don't have a city treasurer in place, and everybody's saying there's a crisis. There's a crisis. We don't know what. We need a treasurer back in place. We don't know. We simply don't know. We don't know if deposits are being made daily. We don't know that. We don't know if deposits are being made daily. We don't know the size of the checks that are coming in. We don't know if the drawdowns have come from AmeriCorps yet. We don't know how much has been paid in property taxes. We don't know how much has been paid in sales tax. Mr. President, did you all discuss the city layoff and when these employees may be able to come back to work?
No. I don't recall that work session. I can throw out a new one and I go blank.
So are we gonna have, well not we, are you gonna have a meeting with the mayor concerning it?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
That's a good point. See, Mayor, he keep claiming it's a council fault. He trying to tell people it's up to the council people.
We don't.
Trying to force us to put in a 1 cent sales tax.
That's all it's about.
And Councilwoman Jackson just got through reading out all these in the windows.
Work orders.
Work orders that was over the city limit because any work order that's over $5,000 had to be brought before the council. But but it just amazes me, that we're gonna sit back, and let the mayor try to blame him for something that he implemented. He brought this on the city. You know, I hope that we could get together, maybe we could offer the mayor a buyout of his contract. He don't have a contract, but, you know, he got 2 years left, and he know he's not gonna get reelected. So, just go and pay him out, cause he done run our city. I'm serious, y'all think I'm joking. He had ruined the city, and using our employees, he hijacked our employees in order for us to do a sales tax. That's not right. I'm telling you, it's not right. It's not right for him to lay our employees out. If before I would have laid my employees out, I would have tried to make cuts somewhere. I'm cutting, I gotta cut something. But he's trying to cut employees and try to save money off them. That's not right. Yeah, why all these high salaries still being paid, salary that we defunded, and people still being paid. So, you know, we're gonna have to address that sooner or later, because we as council, we defunded certain positions, and people still getting paid in those positions. So, we need to do something for our employees, and we need to do it quick. It don't matter what day you call a meeting or whatever, we need to get an injunction against the mayor, because he laying off employees without showing us, do we have the money? Did we have the money to keep the people? If we had the money to keep the people, why you lay them off? And so we need to, I'm saying we need to go and get us a lawyer and do an injunction. I know we talked about that earlier, but you know, that's something we gotta do. We can't wait. You know, we can't sit back and wait, what we're waiting on.
To finish, I'd also like the invoices on the nice outfits that were purchased at Recreation, the nice little outfits and sneakers and suits. What? And I would also like the copy of those, Mr. President, and the signature on it. And again, Council, it appears you all have voted again on things like that without me. I'd like to be included on that because those things should come through us. I'm being sarcastic. Oh. For those of you who were not familiar with my sarcasm, that was sarcasm. But I would like a copy of those, Mr. President. Also, if you could get them as well. Moving on to my last item is a defunded budget item. You know, we defunded some positions and abolished others. Do we have the record yet? Y'all know I was in training. Do we have the record yet on whether positions, I'm gonna say positions and not people, that we defunded are still being paid those same amounts? Did y'all get that in work session? No. Did y'all get paperwork toward the effect of whether positions that we legally defunded are still being paid the same amount?
We asked for it, I recall asking.
Councilwoman Jackson has her hand up.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
If you recall, Councilwoman Benjamin, and I stated in the work session that I did request those items. However, my email was delivered, but I don't know if I haven't received a response. However, if you don't mind making a motion in a legally convened meeting, if it passes by a majority, then he is then authorized. Maybe it's because I'm a single council member asking for an item that he does not feel he should provide that information, but maybe as the body, he may do that. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, what motion would you like?
I would like for you to make a motion that we are provided each person that has been laid off their title, position, and pay, and that we have a cost analysis of what he did to determine the layoff. He stated to the president that it would not work.
That's a 12.5.
Right, with being in part-time or a decrease across board. So if we can have that cost analysis and all of the employees, their position and titles, along with their payroll.
For that during the meeting.
Yes, sir. We were in the meeting and he did not provide it, and so
that is my motion, Madam Clerk. And I saw you writing the motion down. That is my motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yeah.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
All right. Through the department, budget,
No, I just wanted to, I'm glad we made that motion. But I just wanted to
we might
make
make a
sure.
motion that as a governing body that we request for the city to still be paid.
Yeah, let me make that motion too. Let me include that. So I'd like to make a motion that it is revealed to the council that all the funded budget positions are not, or we need information on whether they're being paid or not from the same salary that we defunded. Okay.
That's a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Benjamin.
Second.
Second, Councilwoman Jackson. Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman
Motion
Johnson?
passed. Anything else, Councilwoman Benjamin?
No.
Councilman Randolph.
No, I had something for you.
Councilman Randolph, go ahead.
Yes,
I
sir.
had something that was part of you. Removing the mayor travel budget to $2,500, that's same as the
To
council.
equal hours.
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion that we move the mayor travel to $2,500 to equal the same amount that the council is making.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
I don't understand the nature.
We're wrong, man.
What's the nature?
We trying to save money. We're trying to find money so we can get our employees back.
I was involved in a sidebar, I did not hear the clear motion.
Travel request.
Only thing I'm asking, restate the motion.
Travel request $4,500 like
I said,
Just to level it out with the.
level out for everybody across the board.
So why was so hard? We can restate that. Massive yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Well, I think we need to have more fish, but then Councilman Short.
Was that all under my item?
No, you know, one more. I know I had talked about this earlier, but I'm gonna come back to this at a later date. But the mayor is getting $600 car allowance every month. We need to cut that. I'm serious. We actually need to cut it. If I thought I had 5 votes tonight, I would do it tonight. Because it's not part of his salary. That's his additional money that the council voted to give.
Not this council.
Not this council, but when Mayor Smith was in office, because somebody turned him over to the extra commission to drive the city car as a personal vehicle. So the council voted to give the mayor $600 car allowance.
Also, too, we need to also keep in mind too, if we take the $600, if he charge us whenever we go on a trip, 58 cents per mile, we could, go past.
Yeah, that's why I said I was gonna take a look at it, you know, and see what would be the best, way to handle it, because, we're trying to cut. And also, you know, so, and another thing, since, the mayor, made cuts on our employees, as a council, we need to take a hard look at, outside sources, who we getting free money to. You know, I'm dead serious. We gotta have a serious meeting, a finance meeting, and try to come up with ways of making some drastic cuts on money we give it out, free money.
That's what it's over, $200,000 in agency?
Yeah, about 200-some thousand. Yeah.
Mr. President.
Councilman.
Mr. President, I think it would be cheaper to go ahead and continue the $600. Because if we got to afford the mayor transportation expense. And if we take the $600 from him, then the only other options that he has, and we have no control over that, is to reimburse him by the mileage. And if it can't exceed $600 a mile.
That's 58 cents per mile.
So
Well, he don't go nowhere.
you don't know that.
He don't know. I know you don't.
Okay, all right, standing committee reports and closing remarks. Recreation, Councilwoman Thomas.
You can give me my answer on number 3, that I asked you about. I need to vote on that, to move forward.
Move forward on what?
Because it's been almost 2 years. You know.
Oh, you said that report?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, let's wait till
Go ahead.
He come
Maybe his last one.
I thought he had.
Go ahead, Attorney.
You do it in the special call, maybe
Go ahead, Attorney.
I'm gonna present 1 or 2 items, since y'all are ready to go, and y'all can get the rest of it, later, but, there is attorney's report.
Yes, sir, he is official.
Yes.
He is.
And he had one more meeting. Is this the last meeting, Attorney? One more?
I'm gonna try to attend, one more meeting, but it may not be presenting anything, it just may be,
Ceremonial.
it just may be more,
No, we're gonna put an ordinance on the floor to keep you here.
But this will probably be my last official meeting tonight, but I'm gonna try to attend one more meeting, just to give my farewells to everyone, and wish y'all the best of luck. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Attorney.
Just very quickly, and the rest of the items that we don't have to,
I mean, how many items do you have? Because I know we put a lot of them on the consent agenda.
yeah.
We just table that,
The alcoholic beverage license we had for AJ's.
We tabled it.
I know we said we was gonna table, we didn't table it tonight, though, we tabled a work session.
Tabled it. Moving on.
Okay. Can we, because I've got to report to this gentleman, can we, as a vote, say that we table?
I have a motion on the floor.
So
That's in Ward 2, correct?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
We do have to report, because this guy is a little bit, so we need to, as a council, table.
Roll call to table.
Who's second?
All right, everybody.
I did.
President Bowie?
Yes.
Councilman Bowling?
Yes.
Councilwoman Youngblood?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Benjamin?
Yes.
Councilman Randolph?
Yes.
Councilman LaShaw?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
All right.
We'll let you have the rest of the items later, so the council.
How many do you have?
No, that's okay, that's okay.
How many do you have?
That's okay,
Hurt his
no more.
feelings already.
That's okay.
Got to work with this man again. He's gonna be probate judge.
That's it, no more.
Thank you.
All right.
And if I have anything, I'll present to you at this next city council meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Be your man, man up here.
Standing committee reports.
Y'all ready to go home, so y'all. Let me introduce these 2 guys, because I told them to wait.
Yes, please.
Come on up, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, please. Thank you, Attorney John.
These are the ones that did your meal for tonight.
Fantastic.
We just want to let you know that we appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you, sir.
And we thank you for what you're doing. We just ask that you continue doing what you're doing. I believe you've got a good eye on the future for self. So let's keep it up. Keep up the good work. And remember this, in May we're going to have this done again. We got Brother James Cobb here, is one that helped me cook.
Excellent.
And he done a lot of organizing on our last fish fry back in May, when we had the Veterans Appreciation Day.
Yes, sir.
He done a lot. He was a big help to me.
And this man, he goes out every day and catch the fish, you know. He does it. Every day he goes out to catch the fish.
I catch them, play them, freeze them, throw them.
I want to say before you all go, thank you so much. You all do not have to do this for us. No one has to be nice to us at all. And I want to say thank you to the both of you. I saw you all go back and forth, hauling fish, hush puppies, french fries, not just for us, but for our family as well.
We enjoy it. We enjoy it. We get a good feeling for doing and helping other people.
Can I take a photo for the history books, please? If you could stand by the podium with Mr. James. I'd like to take pictures. And Mr. President, can this be a nice ending, Mr. President? Can this be a nice ending to our meetings and we standing committee reports at a different meeting? This is just a nice ending. This is a nice ending to the day. Yes. And I just think this is just a nice ending to the day.
Thank you so much.
Y'all just keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So moved.
Hey, show some kindness to somebody else.